Welcome in to Check the Mic. Steve Palazzolo, Sam Monson, live on YouTube, coming at you live from the Antonio Cromartie studio in part with Huggies. All brought to you by FanDuel. Monster show here today, Sam. Love our Wednesday shows.
Yeah.
Monster show.
What have we got?
Action-packed, jam-packed. Talking defense. It's like the year of great defenses. Doesn't it feel like that?
It's the golden era.
We're coming off of a game with 60 turnovers and Chargers-Eagles on Monday Night Football. Summed up.
That felt like some pretty bad offense as well as good defense.
But we're going to talk defense today. We're going to drop our top 5 defenses, you and I. We're going to bring in Cody Alexander, a defensive expert from MatchQuarters. Does a great job talking ball, and we're going to get nerdy. Little X's and O's, nerdy on the defensive side of the ball. He'll be coming up soon. And we got Shouty Shows. We got the Wednesday update. And we also have, Sam, this is great, a banner day for Zennials everywhere.
Yeah.
A member of our draft class. Our draft class.
He's older than me.
Yeah.
Excellent.
A member of our draft class is making his NFL return.
I hadn't
Class
even thought
of
of that.
2004 star.
I was too busy just generally
Phillip
laughing
Rivers.
at him being an old man. I forgot that he is actually
Oh,
older.
yeah. Put the grandfather jokes, the 10-kid jokes, the fact that he hasn't played since the COVID year. Put it all aside. The man's older than us. Phillip Rivers.
He's even older than you.
Yeah. Just turned 44.
Good for him.
Not only coming back, but just right in against the Seahawks.
He's born in a whole different year than me.
So we got a lot to break down here today. One other thing at the top, if you see in the chat, there is a link. We're doing our GoFundMe for Cincinnati Men's Recovery Home Heritage House. So it's our holiday charity drive for this year. Appreciate everybody who's already contributed. We're a little over halfway to our goal of $2,000. Raising money for Heritage House over here in Cincinnati, help them have a great Christmas, and addiction recovery program that I'm connected to here. And I have offered, when and if we make the 2,000, I've offered to dress as Elf, and go to the local mall over here, the high-class Kenwood Mall.
Kenwood Mall, not Eastgate.
Not Eastgate. No,
Eastgate.
Kenwood. We're going up to Kenwood. And, we'd like to do that before Christmas. So, if we get this done.
Running out of time.
In
December
a week,
the 10th.
If we can get this done in the next couple days, maybe this weekend, you and I, we'll go up there.
Maybe.
And anyway, appreciate everybody that's already been a part of that. Link's in the description. It's also my pinned tweet. And we've been doing a little Q&A at the end here. We'll see if we have time. I don't know if we'll have time today for the Q&A.
Right, we have more recording things coming up.
We got Dane Brugler coming on for we're going to record something for this weekend, or for Friday, talking about.
But there's always tomorrow after the 9-hour show.
There is always tomorrow. So just be ready. If you're a member, you never know. We're going to drop into a members-only Q&A for 10 minutes at the end of the show. Did it last Wednesday. All right, man. Anything else at the top?
No, let's go.
Let's talk defense. I want to sum up the season, right? Like, we're on the verge of maybe there's no Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. Maybe there's no Lamar Jackson.
Or Burrow.
Maybe there's no Joe Burrow. There's definitely no Joe Burrow. So
Definitely.
This QB-driven league where if you go back over history and you just look at the final 4 teams, it's like, well, best quarterback. It's like the top 4 quarterbacks often end up in the final 4. Not always, but they're in and around there. And now all of a sudden, the perceived best quarterbacks might not be playing in the playoffs. And you look around the league, it's like, man, the Texans are crushing it on the defensive side of the ball. The Broncos, the Seahawks, the Rams have a combination of both. Probably the best quarterback in the league in Stafford this year, and the defense. Just feels like defense is you called it defense is fighting back last year.
Yeah.
And even though points are up this year,
right?
You've got the shortened fields and everything. We've got, I think, more elite feeling defenses than we have had in a while.
Yeah, there's more games this year where you go into the game and you're like, man, this defense is so suffocating. It's causing, it's shutting down the opposing offense. It never feels the way I think it used to when, but way back in the day when you had these amazing elite defenses, they would just, you knew you were never getting anything. I think with today's offenses, even the best defense in the NFL, there's probably going to be a play or two where they give something up, right? There's just a big play somewhere because it's just impossible. You can't, offenses are too good. Quarterbacks are too good. Eventually, on a 3rd and 15, they're going to find something, right? Mahomes is going to find something. There's going to be a deep shot over the top. Brian Flores' coverage somewhere is going to break down. Eventually you're going to be one-on-one with Jeffrey Okudah or whatever. there's going to be a play somewhere. But I think more like this year, more than for a long time, you felt that there are several defenses that are just like, this is going to be a nightmare day at the office if you're an offensive player.
Yeah, that's what I'm feeling. It's just like you're facing some of these teams, and it is the marriage of pass rush and coverage, which I've said a ton on the show here today, where there's teams that can get after you with their front four, but also mix it up with the blitz, mix it up on the back end, create a little bit of indecision, and just do well on both sides. So we'll break that all down in we'll talk nerdy in a little bit with Cody Alexander. But first, you and I have our top 5 defenses. Mm-hmm. We hate ranking things, but we have decided to even rank things for this show.
Nice.
So I'll let you go first, Sam.
We counting down 5 to 1?
I don't know, Will. What do we have a plan? We didn't talk.
No, we didn't. We didn't have any.
This didn't come up in the production meeting today.
As low level.
How we were going to do this?
Yeah, as low.
Do we want to count down? Do we want to count up? Do we want to just drop our each of our top 5?
Usually scratch the surface of professionalism. We didn't even get as far as scratching this one.
Will's going to reveal them all at once. So go through your top 5. Then I'll do my top 5. Give us your top 5.
I'm going to go 5 down to 1. Then.
Do it. Yeah.
Number 5, the Los Angeles Rams and their defensive front, the back 7. A little bit more questions in the corner sometimes, but they've been good. Number 4, Brian Flores and the Minnesota Vikings defense. Just the totality of what he does schematically is devastating. Number 3, the Denver Broncos, the best pass rush in the NFL, plus the back end that they've got. Number 2, the Seattle Seahawks. Maybe less star power than some of these other defenses, but man, the group as a whole and the coaching there is spectacular. And then number 1, the Houston Texans. I mean, the last few weeks pretty much speaks for itself. They are terrorizing people up front with those 2 edge rushers. The back end is locked down as well. They're just killing people.
All right, well, let's discuss your group there, because I have some similar names. I have 4 out of the same 5. I don't have Minnesota in my top 5.
Okay.
Is that a little bit of recency bias for you? They're coming off 2 great weeks. Just shutout against Washington, did a nice job against Seattle. Is that recency bias for you, or do you think – because they were a little disappointing, I thought, earlier in the year, especially getting the run game.
I think they're a little bit more inconsistent than some of these other defenses. I think they are vulnerable to walking into an opponent who is good and experienced and sometimes just has the Rosetta Stone to this defense, and when that happens, I think they're in a little bit of trouble because they don't have the truly dominant players that some of these other defenses do, even though they've kind of invested in it and maybe should have. But outside of an Andrew Van Ginkel being uniquely freaky at picking off screens by himself and taking them to the house, they don't really have anyone that's like, there's no Myles Garrett, there's no even Will Anderson. They had a Donnell Hunter, they got rid of him, and that's why Houston have him. They don't have that, but what they're doing schematically for most offenses is an absolute nightmare in every single game. So I think for that reason, they kind of belong there. They had their wobble earlier this season, where typically it's been towards the end of the seasons in previous years where they've kind of been found out and teams seem to have gotten the book on them. This seemed to happen earlier this year, and then maybe they counterpunched, and now they're still wrecking people.
So there's also a couple teams I want to talk. When I unveil my list, there's a couple that maybe played on Monday night that didn't make the list that probably deserve some honorable mention. And I think that's again where we are. I think the idea of finding a top 5 defense this year, it's kind of difficult.
Yeah, there's a lot of
7 or
deserving.
8.
I mean,
right?
there's probably there's pretty close to 10 defenses where like these are very, very good units.
And that's what just feels different. Now, I mean, you could say it on the other end. Hey, list your bottom 5. It's like, well, Cincinnati for most of the season and Dallas and the Raiders. I mean, you could pull out your bottom 5s pretty easily. I think you could do that every year. I think unpacking the top 5 is a little bit more difficult. Let me go through my top 5, then we can talk about some of the teams where we have similarities. So I'll count down as well. I also have the Rams at number 5. I have the Seattle Seahawks at 4. Mm-hmm. You have them at 2. The team that you don't have is the Cleveland Browns. I have the Browns at 3, and I honestly think you could put them up there at 1. And they're just a different animal because of all these teams, they're not winning. They're not winning games, and they're in this situation where they're not playing with a lead. A lot of these teams feast when they're playing from ahead, when the Broncos have a lead and you just unleash their pass rushers. The Browns don't have that, but man, are they tough. and we'll talk about them in a second. I got the Broncos at 2, and then the Texans at 1. So we both have the Texans at number 1. So let's start with Houston and where we are. This isn't just because they beat Kansas City the other night. I mean, they've been doing this all season. I thought they were good last year, really taking this next step this year. And I think the way Houston's doing it is far more four-man rush than a lot of other teams. Browns are doing that too. Four-man rush. You've got Derek Stingley and Kamari Lassiter on the outside. We saw what Jalen Petrie just did the other day, the big hit on Rashee Rice, the interception that he had. He's been manning the slot. Fast linebackers flying to the ball hawks in the secondary. It is a great combination of the pass rush and then playmakers on the back end.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's a complete defense at every level. They've got players who cause problems. They are a perfect combination. I mean, there was the best example I think of them working just as an entire unit was one of those fourth down plays that Kansas City dialed up. And like immediately there's pressure. Like Will Anderson's getting pressure immediately in the play. Mahomes somehow avoids that pressure, puts the ball in the air, and then on the back end, Derek Stingley is contesting the catch, ends up breaking it up. They don't get it. It's like either end of that play, they are ruining it. And it never had a chance. And this is Mahomes and the Chiefs. And okay, they're down, to second string right tackles and blah, blah, blah. But like, that's what they're doing to teams. They are killing it from both ends. There's nowhere to go. Your margin for error is nothing. There's, composite clips out there of like, here's all these plays of the Chiefs wide receivers in man coverage, and they're just shut down the entire time. Now, those are always a little bit, like most of the time when teams play man coverage, the guy's pretty close to the wide receiver. That's how man coverage works. But it's legit. Like they were getting pressure a lot, and on the back end, they're playing man coverage, and the Chiefs wide receivers were not getting wide the hell open.
I also think back to other games throughout the season for the Texans. The Seahawks game comes to mind where the Texans offense had no issues. Was having their issues against Seattle, and then they just kept forcing turnovers from Sam Darnold. They had the strip sack in the end zone. Like the Texans defense was doing everything they could to keep them in that game. They had the game. It is funny how many of these teams have also played each other. So Broncos, Texans, Seahawks. And you had these defensive struggles, right? The 18-15 Broncos-Texans game where both defenses were outstanding. The Texans' big comeback against the Jags, even though they gave some up in the first half. The Derek Stingley one-handed interception, part of their comeback attempt against Jacksonville, and then just shutting down the Jags' comeback attempt in that game. So there are many of those. And then there's the Josh Allen game, 8 sacks on Thursday Night Football from the Texans in a big game for both teams, right? The Houston's needed their defense with Davis Mills starting for a few weeks, with C.J. Stroud in that offense being inconsistent. They've had to rely on that defense to win games, and that has been the reason. Then you have this game the other night against Kansas City. Again, season on the line, your ability to almost knock the Chiefs out of the playoffs, and they just step up in crunch time and stop a couple Chiefs drives late. And I know, again, you might say, oh, there were drops here and there, but like there's this element of tight coverage, tight window throws, hitting hard, a little bit of pressure that affects ball location. That's where I think Houston and these other defenses are special. Pass rush is getting there, making quarterbacks uncomfortable. And so it's just complementary defensive football that Houston's playing.
Yeah, and again, nobody is going to be batting 1,000. Like, there's no defense that's capable anymore, I don't think, because of the rules, just because of the way the game is, of having just a complete shutdown. Offense is never going to get anything going. Zero production. You're going to give up some. The question is, can you make enough plays to make it difficult?
So I had Broncos at 2. You had them at 3. Denver, I described them in a similar way, right? They might blitz a little bit more. Yeah. They feel like when we talk pass rushers for the Texans, we always start with the edge rushers. They're getting some interior pressure as well. They've gotten some good contributions there. But Denver, it always feels like in any given game, they've got 4 or 5 guys with 5+ pressures. They're going to blitz at the right time, and they're just going to create a lot of havoc around the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, it's not just it actually is kind of to a similar degree. The front or the 2 edge rushers for Denver, they've got Zach Allen as well that's cooking on the inside. But the speed that those two edge rushers for Denver are able to generate pressure is nuts. Like the quick pressure that they're able to bring to the table is absolutely ridiculous. Like when you consider the big thing for Denver is like the weak link in this defense is teams think Riley Moss is some kind of like guy to victimize and go after. Riley Moss is a good player, and he's the guy that they're like, that's the guy, that's the weak link. Now maybe that's just Patrick Surtain's on the other side, so therefore the weak link is Riley Moss, but teams are targeting Riley Moss like he's, some absolute no-hoping bum on the other side. And it's like, Riley Moss is a pretty damn good player. If that's the weak link you've identified, this is a very, very good defense.
And they'll be a little bit different with their elite corner on the outside, Surtain. Stingley for the Texans will play left side most of the time, not move around. Stingley will move around. So that's the other thing that makes
Surtain?
What did I say?
You said Stingley twice, so one of them isn't Stingley.
Stingley doesn't move around. Surtain does. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you. Surtain will move around, create more mismatches and everything, right? At least I didn't start talking about the Giants' run game, like you've done before. Mm-hmm. No offense.
Right.
But yeah, the other thing about Denver.
I no longer feel bad about being old because Phillip Rivers is older than me.
Phillip Rivers is older. There's no way. I mean, you can't even remember which team you're breaking down. There's no way he's going to remember the plays. From the call to the huddle. Like, that's a long time.
He's like, we were talking about it's a vintage day for like Zennials everywhere. He's almost Gen X.
That's true.
The Gen X don't even exist anymore. Those guys are like, they're done. They're gone. Yeah. He's like a year away.
They're in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Retired for 10 years.
He's like 12 months away from being a legit Gen X.
He's also 7 receiving yards away from being the number 2 40-year-old receiver in NFL history.
Right. That's true.
Which is like the worst joke ever, and somehow I have like 1 million views on that from yesterday. So thank you. Get that Twitter money coming in. So Houston's awesome. Denver's awesome.
7 Elon cents. Wait, its way your way.
You have Seattle at 2. Let's talk Seattle. I have them at 4. You have them at 2. I mean, I feel like we're describing the same thing. You said they don't necessarily have stars. Maybe Nick Eamon-Warry is the guy.
A star in development, I guess.
But so I would describe this differently, right? Houston, Denver, and Cody Alexander joining the show soon, and we'll break down some of the intricacies and differences of these defenses. But Seattle's running the Mike McDonald defense, where maybe it's not as dependent on star power off the edge, but you have, timely blitzes, you have a 4-man rush that can get home, and then you have a creative secondary, again, of ball hawks, but you also have that hybrid player now in Eamon-Warry, who is kind of playing like that Kyle Hamilton role, like he's played for Baltimore quite a bit.
Yeah. That defense it's sort of almost a backhanded compliment to be like they don't have the star power of some of these other defenses. I mean, they kind of do. If you like, Devin Witherspoon is phenomenal. Leonard Williams is interesting because I think this defense really unleashes him to be the best version of himself. But would you say Leonard Williams is as good or as star powery as some of these other defensive players that we're talking about in the other units? It's a really, really good defense, and a guy like Nick Eamon-Warry could absolutely become, their version of Kyle Hamilton and their absolute wrecking ball on that defense. But I think the superpower for this defense is they've just got good players across the board, and then you've got this McDonald scheme that just unleashes them to reduce the thinking time. Like they're able to just cook. They're able to go out there. They know what they're running. They're able to execute quicker and better than the opposing offense. And destroy them that way.
Isn't that what the 2023 Ravens, that was the last time the Ravens really had a high-end defense. I thought they had spurts last year, but 23 was the last year McDonald was there. And when we were working at PFF at the time, and you'd look at their starting 11, and we called it like the sea of green, right? Everybody was grading in the green. Everybody was solid. Madubuike, was that Madubuike's breakout year where he had, double-digit sacks. So you wouldn't say Madubuike is a star, but you would say he's putting up star type of numbers. But you just looked up and down that defense, Roquan Smith, and it's just good players across the board. I think Seattle has built the defense like that, right? Where it is Leonard Williams and Byron Murphy on the interior. I think DeMarcus Lawrence, he was one of my favorite offseason additions, and he's made some huge plays for them. Julian Love just getting back at free safety, and that's the other part about Seattle. Everybody's got injuries, but they've done this without Devin Witherspoon for points in the season, without Julian Love. They've had backups in there, and they come in and don't miss a beat either. So I think, Seattle, Love having them near the top here. And then the Browns, who I had and you didn't have. I don't know, maybe you just forgot
No,
how good Cleveland is.
I didn't forget. Part of it is definitely there's some recency bias, where it's like if you're going to let the Titans have some success against you, how good of a defense can you really be?
I get it.
Part of it is also I don't love defenses that, unless the contrast between the Flores Vikings defense and the Cleveland defense, it's like it's really good, but you know exactly what you're going to get every single play, and that's easier to deal with. In my opinion. Now, look, you could look at the data and the numbers and say, well, apparently it isn't easier to deal with given the success that they've had. But I think they don't stress an offense mentally. They stress an offense from just execution standpoint. Like, this is how they're lined up. This is what we got to do to beat this. Go out there and make the play. But you know what you're looking at. With Flores, you got to spend half the play figuring out what the hell you're looking at first, and then figuring out if you're going to able to attack it and out-execute it in the split second you have left before the pressure is getting to you. I think that's harder. I think that's more difficult to deal with for an opposing offense. So the lack of disguise, the lack of mental stress that I think the Browns defense puts on opposition is why I don't have them in the top 5.
I like the fact that they stress you with their front four. Now, they're missing Malik Collins, who is having an outstanding season rushing on the interior. I think Mason Graham, the rookie defensive tackle, has done a great job. This was, if we just go back through the history of Myles Garrett's Cleveland Browns, 2022, that defense was pretty bad. And it was like the whole time we're like, can somebody rush the passer opposite or next to Myles Garrett? He's still doing this. In 23, they did a really nice job there. That's when they made their playoff run, Joe Flacco off the couch, and their defense was great, and they would have a couple coverage busts in the back end. They gave up some big plays, but I think they were one of the best in the league that year in success rate allowed. It was a challenging defense to go against. Took a bit of a step back last year, but this year is back to that. You have Myles Garrett, you have Alex Wright, you have the defensive tackles, and they're just they play more man coverage than most teams on the back end, but that front four just creating a ton of havoc. And then Garrett is now having this historic season from a sack total perspective. And as I have always said, same guy, right? Same guy. Wins at a similar rate. He's just as dominant. He just has more opportunities to tackle the quarterback now because of the support on the defensive line. And that's where those sack totals are coming from. So I love the way the Browns have played. And then you have this idea of there's a lot of pressure on them with how bad that offense is. So yeah, they're losing a lot of games, but there's short fields from turnovers quite often early in the season, and then just you don't have the benefit of being up a score and knowing that you could tee off, knowing that the pass is coming. Has that happened in any game this year for the Browns? And they're still creating havoc with that front four rushing the passer.
Yeah, I mean Myles Garrett on his own is an absolute force out there, particularly because they've moved him around more in the last couple of years than they did at the beginning of his career, where he was one of those guys who just lined up in the same place every single play. They're at least letting him move around and cause some confusion pre-snap, and I think that's an important factor for any of these elite defensive players. Like if you just line them up in the same spot every single time, you're leaving some meat on the bone in terms of the stress they could be causing on the opposing blocking scheme and all those kinds of things. So yeah, like it's a really good defense given, in particular, the situations that they are being put in by their offense.
The other thing I just wanted to highlight, which I love the team building aspect of things, which is why I always joke that the offseason's more fun than the season for us, because we get to talk about how teams are built and what teams should do. When you go back and look at some of these top defenses and how they were built, the Will Anderson trade for Houston ends up being a big, line. Him and Danielle Hunter coming in, like that 1-2 punch. Huge moves to get Houston to where they are. I think Seattle was more of like a brick by brick, but they traded a 2 for Leonard Williams, and he's been a huge factor for them. I think that the Denver story is maybe the most interesting one, because the beginning of the 2023 season, we know how bad the Bengals are right now.
Yeah.
Denver was in that territory. And within that same season,
they're like 3 years away from giving up 70 in a game.
Yes, that season, like within that season, and they went up. And I remember at that time being like, they got to play the Chiefs twice. They're going to give up $1 million to this team, right? And within that season, all of a sudden, like week 7 or 8, whatever it was, they started to become a good defense. So that's been that's been brewing since the middle of the 23 season, and they've just gotten better and better leading up to where they are right now. I think the Flores story is fascinating because that year he was the guy that was rushing 3 or rushing 6, and like everything was different, right? And if you're just defining coverage defenses, they're in their own quadrant of unique, and they've remained consistent. And you look at the Rams, who we both had at 5, and the way they built it with Aaron Donald retiring.
Right.
And replacing him with Jared Verse and Kobe Turner and Braden Fisk, and then got back to this elite level. I think they're just fascinating stories for how these defenses have been built.
Can you imagine if Aaron Donald was still on this defense? Like, Aaron Donald did not retire because Aaron Donald stopped being good at football.
I was only half joking when I said get him back out there for the stretch run.
If Aaron Donald unretired tomorrow, he would immediately be the best defensive tackle in football and maybe the best defensive player. Like, Aaron Donald could still absolutely be one of the most dominant players in the entire league and just decided that he was done with the game at the peak. Like, can you imagine putting him on this defensive line? There's this whole collection of young players that are all causing havoc, chaos all by themselves, and you could just plop Aaron Donald on it right now. And it would,
if you have a football shape question,
absurd.
Just give him 30 snaps. 25, 30 snaps.
Play third down. He's posting workout videos. I have no concern about his...
Football shape's different than, throwing 150s around in the bench.
The man is still shredded with a six-pack. I have no concern about his durability and stamina.
We've got Cody coming up here in a few minutes, and we'll continue this defensive-minded show that we have going on here. What about defenses that didn't make it? Who just missed your top 5 that you're considering here?
Well, the Browns. I think there's a lot to be said for the Eagles' defense. If it wasn't for the fact that they gave up 1 million rushing yards against the Bears and then sort of threatened to do it again against the Chargers, I think I'd have them higher. I think the Eagles are one of those defenses where their peak is absolutely in this bucket. Like, you tell me you're going to get a good Eagles defensive day, it's in the same category as this
for
group.
Sure. That one game probably skewed it for me too. Because I would have had them like Eagles versus Rams. Certainly versus, I think, the Vikings. Like, I'd put the Eagles over the Vikings still. But getting gashed against the run on Black Friday definitely stands out.
I think the Chargers are also capable of that type of play, though they feel like they would have the weakest personnel group of any of those teams. Like, if you were looking at, said the production was the same, just for argument's sake, you would look just in terms of personnel. And you're like, the Chargers have the weakest team or the weakest unit on paper of that entire group that you would be throwing out there. Jacksonville's defense would be very high as well, though I don't know. That one feels, maybe it's just because it's the most recent of the sort of, oh, look, they're playing at an elite level. Maybe it's the one you feel most fragile about. Like, I don't know if that's going to sustain.
Yeah, I'm with you on those teams. Eagles were very close to me, and then I'll just throw the Packers out there, right? There's been points in the season where they looked like they were going to be the best.
Like, I was so impressed by what the Chiefs' defense and Spags' defense did against Houston.
They just haven't done it all season.
I know.
In key downs, they've struggled. They're still 7th in points allowed.
But I still have faith. Like, that's one team where it's like, if you told me it was the AFC Championship game tomorrow and you had to pick a defense for it, like, they might be in your top 5 for that.
Yeah, Spags has stepped up in 2 out of the last 3 games, I'd say. Colts and 2 out of the last however many games. Colts and Texans, giving them a chance to win.
Just can't escape construction.
How do we always
we move buildings and there's still people out there drilling in the hallway?
Always construction going on here. Well, heard enough of us talking defense. Let's try to get an expert in here. Cody Alexander. Cody, how's it going, man?
Going good. How are we doing?
Good. Thanks for doing it.
Cody, first off, introduce yourself to our audience. Wanted to have you on for a while. You do some great stuff. Tell everybody where you're from, where they could find all your stuff before we get into the nerdy stuff.
Yeah, so I run MatchQuarters.com, which is basically a defensive think tank. I just am a nerd on defense, and I write about defenses. I clinic about defenses, and I try and make the complex simple. And I just try and be a resource for anybody that wants to learn the dark arts of football.
Love it. Well, that's why we wanted to have you on here, right? Let's nerd out on defense. So let's just get it. We'll get into the social media stuff. So you can put a top 5 out there so that we can put it out on social so that people can trash your opinion. So let's just start with your favorite defenses, or the best defenses in the NFL. Then we can get into some of the nuts and bolts. Who are your top 5 defenses in the NFL right now?
I think number 1 is the Texans. I think number 2 would be the Seahawks. Number 3 is going to be the Broncos. And then I think to round that out, I like the Browns and then the Rams. That would be my top 5 defenses in the NFL right now.
Who is your favorite defense in the NFL? So have you got one where you like a specific scheme, you like specific play, like just the combination to make that as distinct from the best?
I really like what Halfley is doing in Green Bay. I like watching their tape. I think another team that I really like watching and that I'll watch every single week is going to be the Rams. I think what Shula has been able to do with that amalgamation of the Wade Phillips tree with adding some of the Fangio adjacent schemes that you get has really been cool. I also think when you compare it to what Vance Joseph is doing with the Broncos, just how you can get to basically the same playbook, but get to 2 completely different places, I think to me is just really cool. And so I really like to watch those teams each week as well.
Well, let's start with the Packers. What do you see? What is it that Halfley is doing? And you're starting to hear his name. Just another fascinating story, right? Like, he left Boston College as head coach to take the defensive coordinator job in Green Bay. And now it looks like it might be a great career move as his name's going to be thrown around for head coaching jobs. What is it that they're doing that and how are they deploying Micah Parsons? How has that changed what he's able to do?
Yeah, so Micah kind of unlocks their third down stuff, but on early downs, especially in that division in the North, a lot of 13 personnel, a lot of 12 personnel, which has been a hot topic all year of basically teams are trying to go big, but then they're trying to throw the ball. If you go and you look at what the Packers do, they actually have one of the lowest. It's insane. It's less than 2 yards a throw when they run zone and they're running a zone pressure. This is a man-dominant team, which he has a really cool background. He actually comes from like the Saleh tree. He was part of that 2018 transfer in the 49ers when Saleh went from the Legion of Boom defense to running more kind of cover 1 quarters, more man match stuff, basically playing really tight coverage. And so he was part of that evolution. He's also a Jimmy Johnson quarters guy, which Jimmy Johnson introduced quarters into the NFL in the 90s. So he has this really nice defense where he can use Micah as this leveraging piece on third downs. They play a lot of man coverage, and then they're going to switch it up. And he does a really good job. He's almost like Spagnuolo-esque in sense of when he knows the timing to run these zone pressures. And they just really limit you, and they basically force quarterbacks to be check down Charlies. And so I think Micah with the pass rush unlocks the ability of that secondary, which has really, really good players, especially underrated players at the corner position. But at safety, that those 2 guys can play.
Are there any big picture sort of league-wide trends the last couple of years that you would say these are the things that defenses are all collectively kind of doing more of now, which seems to have sparked this kind of defensive resurgence in the last couple of years? Last year, we were talking about it felt like a year where defenses were fighting back. This year, we've just been talking about, like, I can't remember a time where there have been as many of these good defenses that feel like in any given day they're going to throttle your offense. Like, what are the things that defenses are bringing to the table now that they weren't 5 years ago?
Well, let's start with base defense. So let's start with day one install stuff. So everybody is kind of shifting into 2 different sections. Either we're going to try and play base on a majority of our downs. So I say majority of our downs, like nickel's still the dominant defense in the NFL, but we're now almost lower than 2/3. I mean, it was up to like 75%.
Right. It had been moving in one direction for decades.
Right. So I think you have like the Detroit Lions, you have the Packers, who are, especially in that North division, are trying to play a lot of base defense. They want 3 linebackers on the field at all times. So starting with that, what that does for you is you're not seeing as much man coverage. In fact, we're running man coverage in the NFL less than 25% of the time. Now, there are defenses, don't get me wrong, like the Eagles and the Browns right now are running it really at really high rates. But the Browns, even with Schwartz, the Browns 2 years ago when they had that 2023 defense which was you couldn't do anything on, they were running man coverage over 40% of the time. We're almost running it only a third of the time with those guys. So even the Eagles and the Browns run a lot of man. They're not doing it at a ton. You're seeing more Tampa is back, but it's not the Tampa we think of. So think of Tampa as just 11 X's on a whiteboard. Okay. This is a spot drop zone. So guys just have to get to a spot. You're now seeing what are called non-traditional Tampas, where you're putting guys in different spots. So it isn't just the Mike running the pole every time and the safeties, splitting the field like the Red Sea and quarterbacks just throwing, benders over Mike linebackers. What you're doing now is I'm going to show you cover 3 or cover 1.
It's something that ends up as Tampa.
Right. And then it ends up as Tampa. So if you run this has been just an overall trend within the past decade I call it the Sabanification of football, is because those Bama defenses were so dominant and then it transferred over to Georgia at the college level, it trickled up into the NFL where everybody just wanted to play match defense, right? So NFL's playing a lot of man. College is playing a lot of what's called man match, which is basically man with rules. And how do you counter that? What's your change up? And it's got to be some sort of spot drop zone. And what's the easiest one to install is probably Tampa, because a lot of these teams are cover 3 based anyway. So that's been one of the biggest trends. Quarters has been blitzing overall is up. I think we're over 30%. So almost a third of all plays in the NFL right now have a blitz attached to it. So five guys, or even a simulated pressure where you show more and you rush 4. And then the rise of split field coverages. I mean, quarters, and then the Fangio adjacents with the cover 6 where they can rotate the cover 2 side with quarters on the other side has been a really kind of those have really been the trends in the last 5 years as NFL offenses have kind of exploded.
One of the trends, would you say one of the trends would be, so there was a point where man coverage was higher in part because you'd have like a couple schemes carrying that. Belichick was running a ridiculous amount of cover 1, and then Matt Patricia is moving around the league, and maybe early Flores was doing some of that before he became Brian Flores, which we should probably spend an entire hour on whatever he's doing. But you have those schemes gone. You also had almost a decade of teams trying to recreate the Legion of Boom in Seattle 3. And Cody, I can't remember one instance where it really worked, where anybody even got close to that. But that was like cover 1, cover 3, get out there and just would you say recently the NFL trends would be characterized by teams don't play the same thing? And like Fangio's a quarters guy, and you're talking about him playing more man than he ever has, right? So like there's not a lot of schemes that are just, here's what we play, let's go, let's go play ball. It feels like everybody's mixing in a lot of different styles.
Yeah, so the coverage diversity has exploded because here the thing that you're kind of hinting at is in 2018, we basically played a basketball game between the Chiefs and the Rams, right? And it broke football. People forget in 2017 that the Eagles won basically running an RPO college offense. They won a Super Bowl doing that, right? So the spread won. We're not going back. So we have now, I mean, we're talking but coach, they're running 12 and 13 personnel. Isn't that going back? You've got the 49ers running 21 personnel. Like, what, aren't we going back? No, the spread won. Like, they're doing this to pass the ball, right? So what that is forcing defenses to do is your base defense can't just be a 3-4 cover 3. It can't be a 4-3 cover 3. Like, you can't just sit in man coverage all the time. You're going to have to do different things. Motion rates have exploded over the past 5 years. Okay, well, how do you do that? Well, if you're always in man, you're going to be chasing guys all the time. You don't want to get into track meets. Remember, the defense is reactionary in nature. The offense knows where they're going every play. So I don't want to be in a track meet, because I'm going to be a step behind. And so I think what you mentioned has kind of been that, is that you have a diversification, a hybridizing of defensive structures all throughout the NFL. Guys are trying to pick and pull. I think a great example of this is Lou Anarumo. he was trying to get to some of these Brian Flores quarters pressures, Steve Spagnuolo quarters pressures, where you're sending 5, but you're running quarters behind it. But he couldn't just get it right. So what does he do? He goes and gets Cam Bynum, right? Mekhi Blackmon becomes available on the waiver wire. Who was the first team to pick him up? The Colts. So it's like this is not like, you can see now that there's really kind of 2 trees that I see in the NFL. Is really I call it the Ravens 2.0 system. So this is McDonald, Minter, the Titans, Weaver, who's up for a bunch of head coaching jobs. Go look at that secondary. And that's why he's up for a bunch of head coaching jobs, because they're a top 10 defense in the last month. Right. So he's running some different things like that. So I think you have the Ravens, you have the Fangio adjacent crew, and then you kind of have like that Sala where D'Amico Ryans, Halfley, where they're a 4-down base, they're running wide 9 stuff, but it's more or less like, match heavy, cover 3, cover 1, and then hey, by the way, we also can play quarters, so we keep that man dominant part. So I think that's really what you're talking about. All these defenses are now realizing like, oh yeah, we can't just I just have one guy, let's just go match him up. That just doesn't work.
Do you think that another sort of change in the last few years, you talked about defenses are by their nature reactionary, right? You're kind of just at the mercy of, this is what the offense is doing, let's match up, let's try and take that away. It feels like every development in the last sort of few years, or every trend, every direction that we're pointing in, is about flipping that and saying, actually, instead of being passive, instead of being reactionary, why not go on the attack? Why not force the offense to change? Why not show them simulated pressures? Why not show them disguise? And then suddenly we're the ones forcing the offense to change on the fly. Like, it feels like defenses collectively are trying to, that's the way they're fighting back. It's like, we're not going to be passive. We're going to be proactive, not reactive.
Yeah. So I call them passive pressures. So you have basically a 5-man pressure, but we're going to run quarters behind it. So we're going to be able to cap all of your verticals. We're going to have layers in the middle of the field, so that even if you run all of these crossing routes and these deep crossers, and you're trying to get these play action, these vertical stems on these play actions on early down, well, we're going to send an extra guy. We're going to play quarters or some sort of a cover 2, in the back end with nuance to it. And you're not going to be able to just get us in the cover 3 beater, which is basically running a deep crossing route and then hit it on the hash. And so that's what you've hit the nail on the head is we've seen blitz rates in the NFL go up. And it's because Spagnuolo's been doing this forever. I mean, in fact, Jim Johnson with the Eagles is the one where he got it from. They're called tango pressures. Tango's just a cover 2. And so what they're doing is they're just blitzing, but then they're saying we're going to run like palms, which is like a quarters derivative that is like cover 2. And we're just going to run these the word everybody loves to use is shell coverage. So we're going to run these shell coverages, umbrella the defense, create layers in the back end. And now everybody's kind of picked it up. We're not just running fire zones, right? Where we're dropping a defensive end into, he's got to be the seam player too. We talked about earlier, I talked about hybridization of the call sheet. Well, it used to be you were a spot drop or you were a matchup defense. Well, now what we're seeing is kind of this like hybrid, like, well, hey, if you give me 2 receivers, I'm blitzing. I don't want a defensive end spot dropping to the seam. Like, I'm totally screwed. What if we just attach the nickel to him like he does in all of our cover 3 stuff? Let him take it man to man. And then if you don't have a primary target, you're playing vision coverage. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. You're seeing different techniques. A great example of this was the pick by J.C. Horn against Purdy on the opposite hash. That's called a search technique. And they know, hey, they ran basically a beater for that coverage. Well, the corner's not just going to stand there in space. This isn't Madden anymore. You're not just covering grass. So he starts beelining for a 45-degree because he knows that's where the dig is going to come into. And now I'm going to overlap. So you can see some of these, like, you can call them advanced structures within coverage within these blitzes. Because it used to be if you blitz, you keep it really simple. Now teams are like, well, we're just losing one guy. Why can't we just don't have a 3 drop? If we keep the running back in the protection because we're sending 5, it changes the math for the defense. And so what I really think, to your point, is that defensive coaches have finally gotten good at math, which is something that the offensive coaches have always been good at.
That's great. I love that. Yeah, because the old way that you blitzed, overgeneralizing here, it's like fire zone, 3 under, 3 deep with some sort of match concept in there, or it's cover 1 and it's just you're playing man across the board, right? And teams had beaters for that. And Sam, how many times when we were working at PFF, I know that the data doesn't say that fire zone's like the worst play ever, but every week it was our job to go through and say who busted this coverage, and it's like it's fire zone again, and there's dudes running wide open all the time. Well, it was always fire zone.
This is what's amazing to me is that it feels like the complexity in NFL defenses has ratcheted up, several degrees, and yet I don't know if this is true. I actually need to look this up now that it's popped into my head, but it feels like coverage busts are way down. Like actually, the harder we're making this for defensive players, the easier they seem to be, or the better they seem to be able to execute it. Because we would go through and there's these coverage busts everywhere. Now it's like that doesn't feel like it's happening as often, and yet what they're being asked to do feels like orders of magnitude more complex than it used to be, where it's just get to your spot, play man coverage, one guy's got to drop out. Am I accurate in that, or is that just a weird slant that from watching tape?
I think what you've seen is the modularization of defense, interchangeable parts. I think we're seeing, especially my generation, I'm about to turn 40. There's a lot of younger defensive coordinators hitting this in there. My generation has grown up. Basically, I think a lot of these guys are teachers that happen to be coaches. And the classroom that they're teaching in happens to be a football field. And so they understand. I think Mike McDonald is a great example of this. Him and Wink come from the exact same defense. He worked for Wink Martindale. What's the biggest difference? That was just he completely restructured the way that they taught defense. He created it more intuitive for the players. I think what you saw now in the modern NFL is you're recycling a lot of these guys every 4 years. Okay. Well, if I have a pickup or, hey, we're having injuries, it's a game of attrition. I can't just say square peg round hole. I have to be able to fit these guys. How can we run? Right. Because that's the conundrum, right? How can I run quarters when we're sending a 5-man pressure? Okay. Well, how do I now have to teach that? How can we lose that? Okay. We're only losing one guy. It's basically creating boxes and triangles. So now we're using shapes to do it. Hey, you remember that technique that we used in this? We're going to do that same technique in this. The way the call structures. I mean, we saw it on offense. I mean, think about it. Sean Payton's a great example of an older coach who's still using paragraphs to call the plays. We got Bo Nix yelling at him on the sideline to get him the dang play in, because it's like he's reading a novel to him. Whereas you have others where I thought some of these other coaches are realizing, look, let's get lined up quickly. I'm going to use a couple of words. We have some hand signals. We can figure this out. And then we're able to then kind of, with a little bit of tempo, we're able to kind of make that defense a little bit more vanilla. And so you're seeing that now on the defensive side, which I think is a product of really a lot of these coaches growing up running the spread. And so now on the defensive side, I mean, I don't remember a time when I was coaching where we didn't just use one-word calls, because everything was tempo at the high school and college level. Everything's tempo. And I think that's kind of been one of those deals that have trickled up into the NFL, because if you want to get it to one-word calls, you have to be really, really good at the fundamentals and the base calls. And so I do agree with you that there's been a kind of almost a completely different way people are teaching defense now, which is allowing them to kind of pull from the whole playbook instead of just saying, hey, we're kind of stuck here because this is the only thing we can do.
Talking to Cody Alexander, MatchQuarters. Go check out all of his work. We'll give you, all of those places where you can find all of his work. He's doing a great job. Loving this discussion, Cody. I think I tend to look at the game. I like scheme stuff. I like looking at team versus team. I love looking at the players more, I think, though. So where do players fit into this? So you're talking about teams want to play more base. Then you have a team like Seattle that's like, no, we've got Eamon Wari. He's your big nickel. He's whatever you want to term it. We've been hearing the term big nickel for 15 years or whatever it is, and it's going to go through these ebbs and flows. What are the styles and types of players who fit in to the new styles of defense?
I think you have to add value. You have to be an add value player anymore, especially at these kind of fringe positions on the box, right? I think the Eagles are a great example of getting a guy like a Jihad Campbell, who is he a linebacker? Is he an edge? You know, some GMs were having trouble with, do we want to actually pick this guy up? Because does our defensive staff have a plan for him? Right? You have a guy like a Derek Barnes with the Lions. Why are the Lions able to play a bunch of 4-3? Because they line him up to the back and he can take the back. You have Anzalone, who can now, he can guard a tight end pretty well. So you have to add value. I think what happened to the running back position is now trickling over to defense. Like you can't just be an edge rusher anymore. Like the third down specialist, we're not paying you $30 million to get 10 sacks a year and then only be on the field on third down. That was the big thing. I'm from Dallas, so we hear all the time, like Micah Parsons and his run defense. Like, okay, that's great that you're rushing the passer. Chris Jones in Kansas City, that's great that you're rushing the passer, but when are you going to start fitting the run a little bit more? So I think now, like, people are starting to ask these defenders, hey, you got to do a little bit more. Eamon Worry's a great example of a big body guy that can play near the box, but if you need to put him back at safety, you can do that. I think that, to me, has become that. Like corners, can you play in the slot? Can you look, we live in a wide zone, which means they're attacking the edge. The Denver Broncos, Alex Gibb, offensive line coach, he's famously quoted as saying the corners are just as bad tackling in the NFL as they are at the high school level. That's why we don't block corners. Well, that's an inefficiency. I think analytics has changed the way the defensive plays. People have figured out, like, hey, wait a second, if our corners can tackle, then now that inefficiency within your blocking scheme now it tilts the math in our favor. And so I think what you've seen is, especially at the corner position too, you can't just play man anymore. So if you're just like one of those like on ball corners, you're not going to last very long in the NFL, because one, you're creating a track meet all the time, but two, these defenses are requiring you to have a little bit more nuance. And so, I think that's going to be a trickle down that we're going to see, but it's an add value league now. You have to be able to do more than one thing. You can't just be a one trick pony anymore.
How much of the pivot away from man coverage do you think has been caused by almost every quarterback in the league now is a rushing threat, right? Like there's no more really Tom Brady's, guys who are never going to break the pocket. They're going to move in there, they'll slide, but they're staying there come what may. Now, like even the guys that we don't think of as athletic quarterbacks can still take off and pick up 15 yards if you give them, a two-man look and you don't have enough guys in rushing lanes. Also, on the other end of the scale, you've got guys who are like legitimately some of the best rushing threats in the NFL. So how much of it is you just can't play that kind of man coverage across the board? Because if those guys get one look at man coverage and a gap in the line of scrimmage, they're gone.
Well, we saw a great example of this in the Bengals-Bills game, right? Josh Allen drops back to pass. Bengals are in man coverage. He looks down the field and is like, oh,
it's like 50 yards away.
It's everybody's back turned to me. 40-yard touchdown, right? I think it's funny because like two-man has essentially died as a coverage. It's now a special tool that's used against guys like Jared Goff. Even Burrow can run, but he doesn't want to run. And so like a guy like Burrow, Tua is another example. Like I would almost argue that there's probably like 3 or 4 quarterbacks, Kirk Cousins now, that you will see that like almost have 50% of all the two-man snaps. And why is that? So what's about cover one? Well, your quarterback player is now 30 yards deep in the middle of the field. And so college football figured this out around 2010. Everybody's kind of playing that NFL defense, like same thing, leaves boom, like, wait, we're just going to play cover 3, cover 1, cover 3, cover 1, right? And then they started realizing, well, our basically everything's option now, and our quarterback players now in the middle of the field, and we're completely screwed. And so now you're starting to see a lot more teams kind of play with a split field, or if they're playing cover 3 or cover 1, it's with what's called a cheat safety. So let's say, especially on early downs, that safety is just not pedaling to oblivion anymore. he's kind of just like hanging in that area to make sure that he can add into the run if he needs to, or that the quarterback doesn't take off. I think too, a lot of it has been the Fangio weak rotation. And why is that important? Everybody's trying to run a too high shell. What's the best way to defend a quarterback who runs the ball? Well, quarters is pretty much the best way to do that, because now you have a safety on either side. Well, how can we still run cover 3, but we can get that quarters element or that quarters toolbox? Well, you rotate away from your nickel. And that's what we're seeing a lot now, is like everybody wants to play from a too high shell, because it protects you from play action passing. It protects you from these RPOs that we're starting to see kind of trickle into the NFL in the last 5 years. But it also gives you that extra eye on the quarterback. If something were to hit, you do have zone eyes, and you have guys that are moving to the ball and not necessarily with their backs, again, guarding receivers.
One of the hot internet debates, Cody, on the offensive side of the ball, you have Kurt Warner, Dan Orlovsky. I don't know if you've jumped into any of these discussions about pure progression passing versus Kurt, who hates that. He's like, I want to play it like too high, we go here, one high, you go there. And what's better for the defense, I guess, would be my question. What would you rather see the offense doing from their style of reading coverages? And is there and then I want to get into like, what's the future for the offense now to fight back to what some of these defenses are doing? But pure progression versus Kurt Warner.
Well, pure progression takes longer. I mean, So if you're going to have the quarterback hold the ball longer, I mean, we've seen that now. I mean, there's certain quarterbacks we had a great example of this with Jalen Hurts against the Chargers. When he held the ball over 2.5 seconds, he threw interceptions. We saw this again with, I think, Sam Darnold with Seahawks, right? A couple weeks ago, he throws a bunch of picks. Why? Well, the Rams were basically changing the looks on the back end. So, yeah, you're going through your progressions, but it's like I'm holding the ball because now I have to see, but now I'm getting movement. So I think if you simplify the reads, I think a lot of times that you can get the ball out quicker. We saw this with ironically, I thought Kingsbury had a really good game plan against the Broncos, did not have a really good game plan against this week. So it was like, but get the ball out quick, right? I'm looking half field read. I'm looking at a one leverage guy. Hey, this guy did this. I know where the ball's going here. Find the space, throw it to space, especially now that you've got a lot of zone coverages. It's like you can find the space a lot quicker. That's kind of one of the weaknesses of playing zone, is that you do kind of lead this space. And so especially if you're going to blitz, you vacate it, find that space, throw it quick, get the ball out. I think it's stylistic. Offensively, I feel like that the pure progression versus like half field reads is basically like run fits for defenses. It's like politics and religion. Like, you're not going to get them to change their mind. So to me, if I'm going to get the quarterback to hold the ball a lot longer, I would rather have that.
See, that's the answer. What should the offense do? Ask the defense. What's easier or harder to defend? But the defense is making it tough, I think, for half field reads because of all the nuances that you broke down here today, Cody. Again, enjoyed the discussion. Been meaning to reach out for a while. Enjoy following your work and the hard work that you're doing, nerding out on defense using your terms. Tell everybody where they could find more of your work.
Yeah, MatchQuarters.com is the best place to start. I've got links to all of my socials. I'm also, if you want to just kind of watch a bunch of short videos or less than 10 minutes or long form content, I've got that on YouTube as well. I'm on Twitter at @the_coach_A, and then I'm also on Instagram at MatchQuarters. So you can find me pretty much anywhere.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Cody. Appreciate it, man. We'll do it again sometime.
Cody.
Yes, thanks for having me on, guys. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
Enjoy that year of defense. Had to get that breakdown.
No, it was
things
fun.
are going. It was fun. We'll do it again. We'll get to the future, because a lot of defensive answers came from like, how do you defend the RPO, right? How do you defend it? It almost all started in college, and in college had to figure some things out, and then the offense trickles into the NFL. Then college defenses have to trickle into the NFL.
It's amazing how fast high-level football coaches can come up with solutions for things that feel like they are unstoppable.
RPOs feel like they're breaking
the RPOs,
football, right?
When there was that run of the RPOs, and that Eagles Super Bowl was maybe the last sort of vestige of that that scheme, that coaching branch of offense really working at a high level. That felt like, when you were looking at why that was working, it's like, there's no solution to this. This is unstoppable. Like, it's literally designed like the option where there is no correct way to play it. Whatever you do, they put you in a bind and you're wrong. And in the space of, 5 years, we've gone from that to like, you can't run an offense using these. Defenses know what to do.
And now defenses do feel like they're dictating a little bit more with their 5-man pressures, with their ability to adjust, breaking protection schemes. We didn't even get into some of that, but enjoyed our discussion there with Cody. We all know how fast NFL game days move. One big play, everything changes. That's why live betting on FanDuel is a game changer. With FanDuel, you can bet in real time while the game unfolds. Score just flipped, jump on a new spread or a live money line. The wide receiver's heating up, you could bet the next touchdown score or total yards. Think that drive stalls in the red zone, where you could take a live field goal prop or fade the total. Live player props, team totals, drive results, updated spreads, next play markets. It's all there. It's fast, it's fun, and with FanDuel, your live bets move as quickly as the game does. So whether you're riding momentum or fading the hype, FanDuel puts you right in the middle of every moment. Visit FanDuel.com/33rd to download the app and bet the NFL live all season long. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas affiliation with Start Casino, or 18 plus and present in D.C., Kentucky, Wyoming. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Call 1-888-789-7777. Or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut, or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Paid endorsement. All right, today, we're talking tomorrow night's game, Falcons-Bucks. So we have a prop to discuss. It's Baker Mayfield's over-under, 219.5 passing yards. The key transactions to note here: Mike Evans could be returning for the Bucs. Tristan Wirfs could be back at left tackle after missing last week. And then Jalen McMillan, second-year receiver who got hurt. Was it in the preseason? He got hurt very early in the season. I think it was the preseason. Landed on his head going over the middle on a pass. He was supposed to be wide receiver 3 with Emeka Egbuka, easing into the mix. He could be back as well. Over-unders 219.5 for Baker Mayfield against this Falcons defense.
The confusing Falcons defense, who could be shut down, who could give up, tons.
Everything confusing about the Falcons. The week 1 game, Falcons-Bucks, was the first time. I watched that film and was like, Falcons defense, they have something here.
Yeah.
Now, and then the Bucks made the last-minute comeback, but Baker threw 4 passes in that game that hit Falcons defenders in their hands. They didn't catch one of them, but they were causing problems back in week 1 in the Dome.
Yeah, and they've caused all kinds of problems for really high-end quarterbacks throughout the season. They've just also had games where they didn't. The fact that the Bucs are getting some of these guys back healthy, obviously, I think is a pretty important thing. The fact that Baker Mayfield hasn't really looked encumbered by that shoulder injury, I think, is also important. We're not, I'm not worried about Baker's only playing 75% Baker. He's still out there looking fine. So I'm going to go over.
Yeah. I think the offense as a whole has just been bad before the shoulder injury even. I'm going to go under on this. I'll say this. If Evans is back, though, I'll take the over. Even if he's out there in a limited fashion, he can open up so much more. So I'll take over if Evans is officially back. I'll take under if not. How about that? That's my hedge. So go check it out over at FanDuel. All right, it's time for our Wednesday update.
Now it's time for the Wednesday update, brought to you by the Cincinnati Bugler.
The Bugler is going to break down the Colts here because there is some serious stuff going on. But Daniel Jones confirmed Achilles tear. He's out for the season. Anthony Richardson, he's not back yet. You have Riley Leonard, QB3, who finished the game last week against the Jags. He's got a knee injury of his own. So the Colts are turning to 44-year-old Philip Rivers.
Turning to a 44-year-old grandfather to lead the team.
He is signing to the practice squad with the Colts. Now, it sounds like as long as he's physically ready and mentally ready, he's out there. Against the Seahawks this week.
Against the Seahawks, man. I guess if you're talking about throwing somebody out against the Seahawks defense, the more experience that guy has, the better, just in terms of understanding what he's looking at and being able to survive it is good. So, there are no good options at this point, right? Do you throw Brett Rippon out there? Do you throw Riley Leonard and his busted knee out there? What do you do? there's literally no good option. Like, you are screwed. I guess if you're going to be screwed, the only thing you can bring to the table to try and offset that is a guy who's seen everything and should have some idea of what he's looking at every single play.
Should be, but I mean, we just had this in-depth conversation with Cody about how defenses have evolved and changed over the last couple of years.
Right. How much of that has he been paying attention to? Also, I mean, he hasn't played in years. This is not somebody who, has been. This is not somebody who played like last year and has just been waiting for the call. Like, this is somebody who's been living the life of a grandfather and high school coach for the last few years. Like, in what kind of state is Phillip Rivers currently in?
It's borderline unprecedented, I think. I can't remember anyone else taking 5 years off and coming back. Now, I'm not an expert on this, but off the top of my head, in baseball, Jim Palmer, Hall of Fame pitcher, I want to say he did something where he retired in like 83, and he was making a spring training comeback in 91, something like 8 years later or whatever it was. Somebody could fact check me on that. And it didn't work out. I mean, it's like when you're 8 years later. I remember Kurt Warner. We talk about Kurt a lot on this show. Kurt Warner, because he puts his thoughts out there on Twitter. Mm-hmm. I think he was not like legitimately considering it, but he's like, man, watches a lot of football, watches a lot of tape. I think he's sitting there saying, I could do this. And a couple of years ago, I was like, I wonder if I could come back. Yeah. When he was 43, 44, because he's older. I wonder if I could come back at 43, 44, 45. The last time we saw a 44-year-old was Tom Brady, and he was borderline number 2 in the MVP voting, whatever it was, in 2021. Now, he didn't have a 5-year break in between, and I think he's broken the mold for what 40-year-olds can do in the league. But you don't have many players coming back 5 years after retirement.
No, I mean, this is weird for a whole variety of reasons. Like Brady was 44, but number one, that's basically unprecedented. Number two, there was never any real sign of physical decline for him. The league has already been done with Phillip Rivers. Like, Phillip Rivers already did the decline and then left, retired, right? Like, his Hall of Fame clock apparently gets reset at this point. That's kind of.
I think. See, you guys are being all negative. You're all like, oh, the Hall of Fame clock gets reset. I'm telling you,
they're being negative.
I'm telling you, they're not being negative. That's right. That's what should happen.
No, it shouldn't.
I'm telling you, Phillip Rivers. All Phillip Rivers has to do, because when they get in there debating the Hall of Fame, they're going to go to the playoffs, where the playoff wins, no Super Bowls, didn't even make a Super Bowl, only 2 AFC championships. When they get into the room, they're going to debate that. I'm going to go glass half full and tell you that if Phillip Rivers steps in
and wins a playoff game,
all he has to do is win 8 straight games. Oh. That's it. If Phillip Rivers could just win 8 straight, 4 regular season games, maybe even 3-1 in the regular season, that's fine. And then 4 straight, win the Super Bowl, Canton sealed. Wait 5 years, but it's happening.
Well, that seems easy.
That's all he's got to do. He's 8 games away from the Hall of Fame. Yeah. That's how I'm going to.
8 games and
glass
five more years.
That's how I'm going to position
at the end of this one.
So Rivers is back. We don't know officially if he's going to play. We're doing all of our actual game previews tomorrow. Hopefully we'll have more information.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because when Rivers last played for the Colts, that Colts team was pretty good again. They were expected to be a contender. That's why they were searching around for people like Phillip Rivers and the Matt Ryans, and they went through this run of the veteran quarterbacks. And he was okay, he was solid for them, but it felt a lot like, okay, Rivers now needs help more than he did previously. He's reached the age now where he's going to need protection. He's going to need.
Oh yeah.
It's an interesting spot. Like we've been saying, it is a good system for any quarterback. They've got good offensive line. They've got good receivers. They've got a good scheme. Okay, now you're going up against the Seattle defense, so that's not ideal. But it is a good situation for a guy like Phillip Rivers to step into. We just have no idea what state Phillip Rivers is in. He's 44 years old. I mean, that immediately is not good. He's been out of the game for 5 years. That's also not good. He doesn't strike me as the kind of person who's been like Terrell Owens still has a 6-pack and is jacked to the gills, even though he's 55 or whatever. I don't get that impression from Phillip Rivers. It doesn't feel like someone that spent those 5 years in the gym. So I don't know what that is. If you were telling me tomorrow, right? Forget the NFL. If you were we've arranged for you to step into your IAFL team, right, for just a one-off game. I'm going to need several months to get ready for that. 4 minimum.
And
I'm going to need 4 months of runway to get to the point where I'm ready to play in that game. And that's a nothing game against people that have no business playing professional sports. Phillip Rivers, he's got to step into the NFL against one of the top 5 defenses in the league. You're telling me he can be ready for that in a week?
And you were making fun of me when I could only throw 75 miles an hour.
Well, it's the same thing, right? Like you
can't just wake up out of bed and have the same velocity.
Let's assume for a moment you can even get back to anything like that velocity. How long would it take you?
No, I think I would need. I think I could throw 90 with 6 months of training.
Okay. Yeah. I could play in that IFL game. I think I would need at least 4 months of training to get to the point where I could run around.
So we don't know what Rivers is doing. I saw Mohall bring up the story, The Rookie. I don't know. Do you ever watch Disney's The Rookie, which was based on a true story? 1998, a guy named Jim Morris was a high school coach. He was like 38 years old, and he played in the minors, and he had not played in like a decade in the minors. So it was a long time.
I've never seen that.
So Jim Morris was just a high school coach, threw BP to his high school team, and they were like, "Coach, you throw hard, you know?" And then supposedly goes to like a Tampa Bay Rays tryout and was throwing 98 as a 38-year-old, and then just went to the minors and then made it to the big leagues, throwing 98 as a 38-year-old rookie or whatever it was. It sounded like something Disney made up, but it was real. And maybe there's that. Maybe Rivers has just been throwing so much at practice as a high school coach over the last 4 years. Maybe his arm's fine.
Maybe. But there are certain people that always felt like, like Brett Favre. Brett Favre, what is he, like 50? Brett Favre, I feel like, could go out there right now and have an NFL arm.
Probably.
Right? So that sort of makes sense, right? Like I could imagine, there's no age you could tell me that Brett Favre is unretiring and playing a game, and I'd be like, there's just no way he can make that 15-yard out. It's not going to happen. Physically, I feel like Brett Favre at any point could go out there and play an NFL football game. And my only question would be, if you hit him, does he break? Right? My question would never be, can he make the throws necessary for this? With Phillip Rivers, though, like 5 years out of the game, 44 years old, I have no idea if Phillip Rivers can still make that deep out.
So we're going to give roadside assistance to the Colts and give the answers to how they're going to maximize Phillip Rivers. But first, we got to talk about our friends over at Root Insurance. Root Insurance believes that good drivers deserve better rates, so they've created a new kind of car insurance that rewards good drivers in an easy-to-use app. Traditional car insurance companies focus on demographics like age, zip code, occupation, and credit score to price your coverage, but when Root offers a rate, your behavior behind the wheel gets more weight than any other single factor. They don't use occupation or education level to negatively affect your rate. While you drive, Root gathers and analyzes data from your smartphone sensors, and after a few weeks, you'll get a car insurance quote based primarily on your driving. Save up to 44% off your initial Root quote after you take the test drive. If you need a tow truck, jump start, or you lock your keys in the car, Root will cover the help you need to get back on the road when you opt into roadside assistance. The Root app makes it easy to edit your coverage, update your policy, or file a claim in just 3 minutes. You can get started today at Root.com. And so we will provide roadside assistance to the Indianapolis Colts. They were on our list for this week. Then the Phillip Rivers news breaks. So we figured we'd combine the two. So you have Rivers. You have all these questions around him being 44, not in the game for 5 years. How do they make this work?
It's also definitely not an ideal situation that Braden Smith, his right tackle, is in the concussion protocol. I think in an ideal world, you would want every single offensive player healthy so that Phillip Rivers has the best possible supporting system around him. That's a problem if they're down their right tackle.
In addition to we said Seahawks defense, 49ers after that, Jaguars after that again, and then the Texans. Yeah, so if Rivers makes it through these next 4 games here,
alive,
these are challenging defenses to go up against. So anyway, how do they make this work? Because they're sitting here at 8-5. They're the number 8 seed right now.
Yeah.
And if
the reason they've done this is because the season is on life support now, and Riley Leonard's probably not getting it done.
If the goal is to at least sneak back into the playoffs here, you have to at least get to 11 wins.
Right.
So they got to win 3 out of 4.
Yes.
Phillip Rivers hasn't thrown a ball since the 2020 wildcard game against the Buffalo Bills. By the way, he played pretty well.
Professionally.
In that game.
Yeah. I'm assuming he's thrown a ball. Otherwise, we've got some real problems.
That'd be an even greater story.
Yeah.
First throw was at the tryout.
Right. First throw was after
Tuesday.
they'd signed him. It's like when, they gave Kirk Cousins $140 million, whatever. And it's like, oh, he can't move. They just signed Phillip Rivers, and then he rocks up to the building. It's like, when was the last time you actually threw anything? 2020.
I'll just say, Phillip Rivers is 8 games away from the Hall of Fame. Shane Steichen's 4 games away from Coach of the Year, hands down. If he pulls Rivers out of retirement and he starts dealing, this is Shane Steichen, man.
I mean, it's fascinating because, the last thing we saw from Rivers was decent. It's not like he was terrible. And you would assume, given how much experience he has, it's not the most complicated defense in the world going up against the Seahawks. So I feel like he's going to be able to have opportunities to just put the ball in the air and give receivers a chance to make plays. And they've got good receivers. They've also got a good run game. So, and you would imagine Seattle's plan early will be, let's light them up. Let's come after him. Let's really show him what the NFL's about these days. If Rivers can hit a couple of shots early and be like, just back him off, well, then you can get Jonathan Taylor going, and then you get a game.
That's what I'm interested in, because I could see the answer being, well, you got to get rid of the ball quickly. He was never the most mobile guy anyway.
Right.
Can't imagine he's going to move quickly right now. And all of these 5-man pressures and 4-man pressures really that mess up protection schemes can cause some problems. Get rid of the ball early. But I like what you're saying. Get the Alex. I'm assuming you can throw the ball 50 yards. Get the Alex Pierce 50-yarder out of the way early.
Take a couple of shots, yeah.
Get the Pierce shots. And then I would say Tyler Warren becomes your best friend working in the middle of the field. Get your tight end screen out there early for 15 and feed Tyler Warren as well.
A little bit like that one of those first Shador plays against the Raiders. Now, okay, he had to run to make this happen, but it's like the Raiders were like, we're lighting this kid up. He can't play in pressure. We're just going to send the house and he'll collapse. And instead, Shador got out of the pocket, rolled right, and then hit a 60-yard bomb over the top. And they were like, yeah, all right, maybe we'll back off. Maybe that's the wrong way of doing it. Okay, Rivers isn't going to move, but if you can just hit him over the top, if they're going to come after him heavy early in the game, if you hit him over the top a couple of times, well, then they're going to drop everybody back, and now you've got a light box for Jonathan Taylor to run into.
Then you just have Jonathan Taylor generally. I mean, I think an ideal scenario is that guy's getting 25 carries, but you have to get there. You can't just feed him, and Seahawks are doing everything they can. I could see everything we just talked about with Cody about how if you're facing Jared Goff in today's NFL, you could play man.
Yeah.
If you're facing Phillip Rivers,
definitely play man.
You could probably play man, and so the old man's going to have to hit some tight window throws.
Yeah.
And so give Pittman, Pierce, Warren some opportunities, and then I think you pass to set up the run.
Tight window throws and or throw at the backs of defensive players in man coverage who are not looking for the football.
And the challenge there is going to be practice time, right? And being on the same page with some of these receivers. But obviously Rivers is going to be able to read that and say, okay, I'm just going to back shoulder this, give you opportunities to play.
I did
make a play.
I did like Mina highlighting that Phillip Rivers' eldest child and Riley Leonard are almost the same age.
Yes.
Yeah.
I liked our friend Arif, his breakdown. Do you see his chart?
No.
It's he calls it like the Phillip Rivers hellscape or something like that. It's the most dropbacks within a score in the last 2 minutes of the game.
Okay.
And it's like, whether it's since 2000 or since 1978, the chart is like Phillip Rivers, the bar chart is like way ahead of everybody else. Because he's never really been, he hasn't been on a ton of dominant teams.
Right.
He was never on a bunch of bad teams. He was always in close games. And he just gets to add to that potentially here, playing in close games.
Okay.
How else can we help Phillip Rivers? I think we've given some good answers here. If you're going to beat man coverage, you gotta make some tight window throws here.
He's going to need to be on all the old man supplements as well going in this week, right? Like whatever joint mobility stuff, gummies, creatine, just start loading all of it.
I had some good creatine that I think helped my career. Fish oil.
Yeah.
Is
a million cod liver oil capsules. Just start pounding those things. They're supposed to help with the joints. Yeah, like everything you can get into you in the next week that's not going to fall foul of USADA or whatever they get tested by. Even if it is, what the hell does it matter? Let's go. Fire them up.
It's like a different form of midlife crisis.
All the the supplements.
Some people buy a car they can't afford or whatever it is for their midlife crisis. Philip's like, I'm going to go take a beating in the NFL.
Here's the thing. By the time they actually test him and, there's any consequences for that, your job's done.
Oh, you're...
Well, look,
this is your roadside assistance.
I'm saying let's
start.
What,
are you going to suspend me for 2026?
Let's start with all the legal supplements, but if you happen to dabble in some stuff that might not be, legal as okay, when is the consequence for that going to hit?
I don't think that's the right roadside assistance we should be providing. I think we've helped, though.
You say that. I feel like that's the way to go.
Man coverage beaters, pass to set up the run.
Like my 4-month timeline to play in the IFL game, I feel like it could be truncated if I was allowed some illegal supplements.
Yeah. I don't think we want that attached to our roadside assistance, but we've done our best fixing the Colts. And we'll have a full breakdown on that game tomorrow. I really hope Rivers plays. It's good for everybody.
I think he will. I mean,
it's good for everybody.
Riley Leonard's hurt. Like, the only way he doesn't play is if he's completely unable to, at which point signing him was probably a mistake.
What if Brett Rippon outplays him at practice?
Well, I mean, then you've got all kinds of problems.
All right, let's go back. Continuing our Wednesday update here, going around the league. Browns quarterback Shedeur Sanders has been named the starter for the rest of the season.
Mm-hmm. Again, right as according to plan.
As you predicted. He's also earned it, I would say. I mean, if the goal was, let's see Shedeur, let's see Dylan Gabriel, kind of like what Michigan used to do with Brady and Drew Henson. They'd both play a quarter, and then they'd choose whoever earned it, whoever played better for the second half, and it was usually Brady. I mean, if the goal was, let's see both and then see what happens, like Shedeur's earned it. Like, if he had 3 bad games here, they're probably throwing Gabriel back in there.
That's the thing. So there's no downside to saying it. It's like, yeah, he's going to play the rest of the season, but if he absolutely craps himself for 3 straight games, that's probably not true. So, what's he's the starter for this point forward. We've already seen Dylan Gabriel. We've already seen Joe Flacco. Like, we're on to Shedeur, and then next year we'll get an actual quarterback.
And then you have Browns center Ethan Pocic, season-ending Achilles injury, right guard Wyatt Teller, calf. He's ruled out for Week 15. So you have an already rough offensive line for most of the season.
Yeah, that's not helping.
Dealing with some injuries up front.
Yeah, that sucks.
We have the Vikings, per Ian Rappaport, are expected to add a veteran quarterback in the offseason to enhance the room. Quote, enhance, and, quote, push McCarthy.
Yeah, what a shocker.
First name that comes to mind. There's 2 names that come to mind right off the bat. One's a good fit, one's not.
Okay.
The good fit, I think, is a Mac Jones. You'd have to trade for him.
Yeah.
But a Mac Jones. Is that the next spot for Mac where it's like, okay, you bring him in and like he's worth trading for because you could see him running that offense?
Maybe Phillip Rivers will earn himself a contract.
Oh, you just wait to Phillip. The other name that comes to mind who I think would be an awful fit for Kevin O'Connell in that offense is Kyler Murray.
Yeah. So okay, yeah. Well, I'll get to him in a second. Mac Jones would be interesting. There's also Daniel Jones now with this. What does his contract look like? What does the Achilles look like? What can he get? What does the market look like for him? The Colts, I'm sure, will still want to sign him. But the Vikings wanted to sign him a year ago, and that was when they thought McCarthy might be good. Now, if they think McCarthy's crap, Daniel Jones might still be an option for them, and maybe they're willing to pay more than the Colts are. So I think Daniel Jones is a potential option for them to at least kick the tires on. The Kyler Murray thing would be interesting because at this point you have to assume that the Cardinals are looking to move on from him. What could Kevin O'Connell do with a Kyler Murray? Because Kyler Murray is undeniably exceptionally talented. He is also undeniably a unique quarterback that it's not going to work the same way it does for other people. So is Kevin O'Connell's quarterback whispering gifts, such as they are, like, I am just going to make you feel good about playing quarterback and get you playing the way we want it played? Or is Kevin O'Connell actually able to say, this guy is a unique player. It doesn't work for him. Like, Kyler Murray is never going to play the quarterback position the same way as Sam Darnold does, right? They're very different players. They bring completely different skill sets to the table and very different limitations. So I'm going to build a completely different offense for him and rebuild him and get him feeling great about quarterbacking. Part of me wants to see the experiment, but my assumption would be the results from said experiment would not be good.
Yeah, like I could be pigeonholing Kevin O'Connell just because he's had the success with your color by numbers guys like a Kirk Cousins or a Sam Darnold, or even a Josh Dobbs who came in and it's like, all right, he's gonna come in and run the offense, right? Like, I'm not changing anything.
If I had the power of the multiverse, I would really like to go and see what that looked like, right? I would like to transport forward to like week 15 next year if Kevin O'Connell had Kyler Murray from like day one of an offseason program and had the whole thing to work. I would love to go and see what that looked like.
Yeah.
But my assumption would be that would be an ugly world where things had not gone well for the Minnesota Vikings offense.
That's why I'm thinking a Mac Jones or a Daniel Jones is a is a better fit.
Yeah, even though I think Kyler Murray is a much more talented player than either of those guys.
And I think Kyler, I think the Jets should look at a Kyler Murray, perhaps, and like as they're thinking about their next, maybe because maybe they don't want to win too much next year. We'll see. But I think other teams should kick the tires on Kyler Murray. I'm just not sure if
who else would be an option as a veteran quarterback for the Vikings.
Bring Sam Howell back.
No. That doesn't feel like one. I mean, Russell Wilson will be available. That feels like an also not really that doesn't feel like one you're going to want.
I don't think I would do that.
No. Who else would be in that bucket?
I'm looking around here. Geno Smith.
Geno. Can't after this year, right?
Probably not. I mean, if the idea is just push JJ push JJ means let's listen to the terminology. Daniel Jones was signed to push Anthony Richardson, wasn't he? Like, wasn't that same verbiage used?
Yes. They are looking for an option next year.
Please be better than JJ McCarthy right now.
They are looking for a viable quarterback next year, a veteran viable starting quarterback. And if JJ McCarthy happens to win that job over him, okay, but they are working on the basis that J.J. McCarthy, as of now, cannot be trusted to be the day one starter next year.
I'll throw a name out there. I don't know if it's a Vikings fit, but it's a rejuvenation project.
Yep.
Will Levis.
Will Levis.
I'm not saying this is the guy that comes in and beats J.J. McCarthy. I don't know if this is good for Minnesota. Maybe it's Jacksonville, sitting behind Trevor Lawrence, guy that he's already had success with Liam Cohen. Maybe it's Sean McVay. He sits behind Matthew Stafford. But as the next reclamation project type where it's like a 5% chance that it hits, that's at least intriguing.
That is intriguing, but nobody's starting Will Levis. That part. I'd be like, if I was a quarterback coach or whatever, and you tell me I've got a roster spot for a couple of years for a guy to sit and see what we can do with him. Yeah, Will Levis would be an interesting player.
I'll throw out one more wild name.
Yeah.
Malik Willis. I haven't looked at his contract situation. He's in Green Bay, but every time he's come in for Jordan Love, he's looked like a completely different quarterback.
Yeah.
And he's crazy athletic with a big arm, but he's won within the system with LaFleur. You have a similar system with O'Connell. And just throwing it out. Like, he just looked a lot different than he did in Tennessee. Looked a lot different than he did.
The other one is Davis Mills.
Davis Mills, yeah. Just got to him.
In
my brain.
He's only got a 1 year deal, right? So he would be available.
He just re-signed. They just extended.
Oh, they extended.
Yeah.
So they'd have to trade for him as well.
Yeah. And probably not for a ton, but I mean, again, if you're talking about a perceived backup, though, with the idea to start, I think Mac Jones is probably the most likely player. Again, we'd have to pry him away from Kyle.
Yeah. The big problem here that we're kind of identifying is none of these are great, and most of them you need to give something up to get.
Yeah.
That's not an ideal spot to be in if you're the Minnesota Vikings looking for this veteran presence.
In a world where you're all for the funniest thing possible.
Yeah. Aaron Rodgers?
No, that's one. Phillip Rivers. Like, legit, is decent enough where he's like, I got to come back.
There's always Joe Flacco.
There's Flacco, too.
Phillip Rivers playing well for 4 games and convincing somebody that there's one more year left in him would be hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, maybe in 9 months' time or whatever, Carson Wentz will have had enough pieces of Humpty Dumpty put back together that you can start him again.
Jeez. Well, just keep an eye. We'll be talking a lot of Vikings this offseason. Other injuries and various things. Commanders tight end Zach Ertz did tear his ACL. He will miss the remainder of the season. We mentioned that on Monday morning. Sad finish to Ertz's season and then perhaps his career at 35 years old.
At this point you would say probably his career at 35, right? Which sucks.
Giants have fired assistant defensive line coach Brian Cox to go with defensive coordinator Shane Bowen, who was fired last week. So more changes for the Giants, this time during their bye week. We've got Dolphins running back Devin Achane. MRI showed no fracture in his ribs. As you had said, McDaniel hinted that he could come back. They've got a Monday night game now against Pittsburgh this week. We have the Lions signing Devontae Casey to their practice squad, safety, with Brian Branch tearing his Achilles. So Casey, maybe the guy that comes in and adds some depth for the Lions. We have Steelers wide receiver DK Metcalf stayed overnight in the hospital with stomach pain. Status is up in the air for Monday against the Dolphins. So we'll keep an eye on that one. Ravens offensive lineman Ben Cleveland has been suspended for 3 games, violating the substance abuse policy.
Yeah. This is probably not a scientifically sound way of doing things, but if you simply looked at the body shape of an individual player and said, is this guy on steroids or not? Ben Cleveland would be he'd be one of the guys you'd say, yeah, probably. You know? Like just from the look of him, if you were like, you lined up 100 players and you said 5 of these guys are on steroids, which ones? He'd be one of the 5 you picked. Like he looks like a cartoon character. Like he's this he looks like Juggernaut from the X-Men. He's just this giant, jacked human being. You're like, yeah, I could believe he's on something.
I played professionally at the end of the steroid era. Right as they were being, major league players were being called to Congress, and they're like, I didn't do steroids. Like that was 2003. I started professionally in 2004. First, major league clubhouse by 2006. So they were cracking down, and we were all getting tested. There was one year though, somebody came back. It was one of the fastest players in the organization. He was a speed player. And he came back. There's Ben Cleveland on the left. That's Ben Cleveland on the left.
And that guy somehow got popped for PEDs. Who'd have thunk it?
Who would have? And we showed up to spring training one day, and this guy was like 40 pounds of muscle. He looked just inflated. He looked fake.
Yeah.
And it was like, dude, we get tested. Like, what did you do? What did you do in 4 months, man?
Right.
What did you do in 4 months?
That's why people do it. You can hammer it for a few months and you're good.
Oh, I mean, I've been honest about this before. I haven't done it, but we had the conversations.
I remember
we sat in the bullpen and we weighed, like back in college summer ball in 2002, 03, and weighed. What would you take? What are the steroids? What do you do when you take steroids? Like,
right.
What do you do to maximize the effect? Like, we had these conversations because we were all sitting there on the verge of get drafted, throw harder, everything that comes with it. We had those conversations.
I remember around the era when Brian Cushing was getting repeatedly popped for PEDs. I can't remember who it was. We were also having a discussion with somebody, and they were like, there's this whole world now where like high school players are taking these steroids because, number one, there's not a ton of testing in high school. But by the time, even if you get pumped, you've done so much sort of theoretical benefit to your body, however much detriment there is on the other side of that, whatever. But you've done so much like effectively permanent positive impact to your body in terms of muscle growth and just, getting jacked to the gills that it's worth it. You take your suspension, even if you come off it at that point and you're done, like that doesn't go away. You haven't, you've not lost all of the benefit. Like there's so much benefit to just accruing all that muscle in the first place. And now you can then live off that for the next, like you just jump forward several years in development.
Yeah. We had all those debates too.
Yeah.
Right. If you do it in high school and it doesn't affect your college status and the whole thing. I mean, there's a lot there. I noticed college used to have like secret suspensions. I think like Will Greer got caught for steroids in college. He's the only guy that I remember being caught in like the last 20 years. And they test supposedly. There's nobody else. They're testing. Chiefs left tackle, backup tackle, Wanye Morris, out for the season. Got injured on the very first play.
Yeah.
Sunday night. He was already a backup, so he gets hurt. They were down to third string left tackle Essa Pole, who held his own for his first NFL action. But yeah, tough blow to the Chiefs. I mean, Morris is really the number 4 tackle on the team, with Jalen Moore being the official swing tackle. But, it hurts depth.
You're going from 4 to 5. The point is more that it means number 5 is now starting.
And Josh Simmons is already hurt, the starter, and Jawan Taylor's already been banged up.
Number 5 is theoretically starting for them right now, which is not an ideal situation, even though at least on a 1-game sample size, 5 may be better than 4.
Then we're going to wrap up the Wednesday update with some Bengals news. First, edge rusher Trey Hendrickson underwent season-ending core muscle surgery. It had been this week to week, every week it's like doubtful. We talked about him at the trade deadline. It seemed like the Bengals season could have been over, even though technically we've been talking about the last few weeks how it wasn't. Thought he could get traded at the deadline. I think this injury, we didn't know the significance of it at the time, but it's now going to be season-ending.
Yeah.
the injury is probably a big part of why he didn't get traded. Plus, the Bengals just holding on for some hope. But his contract's up, and as Ian Rappaport says, he'll be fine in 6 weeks. If you're worried about free agency and paying him big money this offseason, don't worry. It's not a long-term thing.
Don't worry,
but
the desk of Trey Hendrickson's agent says it's not a problem.
He said, yeah. And I'm surprised there's not a note about how tough he is and tried to play through it this last few weeks. But the other Bengals news. All right, 2 pieces of news. T. Higgins is in concussion protocol, which is a weird dynamic here, Sam.
That T. Higgins' head bounced off the turf in that game, going up for a one-handed catch. And he went into the tent, came out. Like, he, I think, was looked at for concussion multiple times in that game and somehow came back into the game multiple times. Like, that, we need some kind of review. Like, remember the shitstorm that happened when the Giants were pulling Jackson, or not pulling him out of the medical tent, but, like, going into the medical tent to be like, what's going on? Like, we need this guy out. And it's like, dude, we're evaluating for concussion. Get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
And Brian Daboll got fined and whatever. Like, there was a big investigation immediately. We can't have that. This is a way bigger deal than that. Like, this guy supposedly passed concussion tests multiple times and immediately went straight into the concussion protocol because, of course, he was concussed. Like, what the hell? We need to start. I need answers as to how this system failed him multiple times at the time.
The report was he showed symptoms after the game.
Right, which is fine.
But
and that
somewhere
is something
in the game.
But this was one where, like,
he must have passed protocol.
Right, which means we need to talk about the protocol.
Chris Nowinski, from Harvard, former professional wrestler, Harvard football.
I'd love to talk to that guy. We need to have him on at some point.
I mean, Chris is pretty straightforward with a lot of these. It's like, and again, the inside info is like he was going to take down the NFL over a decade ago. Like, the whole NFL was going to get sued forever, and unless they did something about the concussion deal, and they've taken steps, right? Probably not satisfactory to what Chris would want, but they have at least a protocol right now. But you see Chris tweet about this all the time. He doesn't mix words, right? He's like, this isn't a concussion, it's a brain injury.
Right.
And when and then there's certain times when a guy gets hit where you're just like, he's out of the game. Like, I don't care what the protocol says. I don't care what tests he passed. He's just out of the game.
Right.
And then you compound it with he just got out of concussion protocol.
Right.
That should be automatic.
I mean,
and so that's going to be it's not as high profile as Tua a couple years ago, but this is the same thing as Tua getting diagnosed with a back injury where he was clearly concussed and then getting concussed the next game.
So I don't even think, that was egregious because that felt like somebody manipulating evidence to be like, don't worry about it. He wasn't really concussed. It's like, dude, he was quite clearly concussed immediately at that point. And you're telling me it was a back injury? What kind of bullshit is that? This I don't think was that. This I think was probably a very legitimate, he passed 2 concussion protocol tests during the game. But my point is, obviously he was concussed based off the mechanism of that hit and the fact that he reported quite quickly afterwards concussion symptoms and is now in the concussion protocol. So that means your system is broken, right? And Nowinski had a tweet about it where he says, now that it's confirmed T. Higgins has another concussion, he shouldn't have returned after 2 evals on Sunday. In the NFL, on-field science can be overruled in the blue tent by passing a weak test. I hope no further damage was done. NFL leniency shouldn't be applied to your kids, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that first point is, that's the immediate fix to this. If it's your second evaluation within a game, we're just ruling you out. I don't care if you can pass the test. If we've had to look at you twice because we thought you were concussed,
because you've clearly taken 2 bad shots.
We'll give you 1, right? If we think you took a hit that looks like concussion and actually it turns out you passed the test and all's good, all right, fine. If it happens again, I'm like, look, with an abundance of caution, sorry, you're just getting shut down for the game.
I don't know how much the eye test matters, but number 3 on the Chargers the other night had to go get tested. And it didn't look that bad, but they're like, look, we got to go test it. And he came back in the game.
And this is why I think you should get 1, because there are some times where you just get blasted, you get lit up, and actually you are fine. Now, within the realm of, I don't know what that's done to your brain in terms of rattling around in its skull. But, there are times where you take a hard hit. I've taken a hard hit where I don't feel like I've been concussed. I've also taken a hard hit where I know 100% I've been concussed. Like, there's a difference between those 2 things. And if someone just took a look at you, because there are times, the independent spotter, like if you get up slowly, or one of the things they're supposed to look for is if you shake your head. Like, I've shaken a head just from getting hit. I got hit in the ribs. I've shaken a head just because it hurt.
It's instinctive, right?
Right.
Part of it's instinctive. It's not.
But that's part of the thing. That's why they look for it.
I
It's because
feel
it
like-
is part of it is an instinctive reaction to being hit in the head.
I feel like players. I feel like I've caught a couple players like about to shake, and then they like
Of
stop
course.
themselves. And
But
they're
my
like,
point
don't
is,
show
yeah,
this.
I think it's reasonable to say there are times where the guy spotting is going to say, "Look at this guy, give him the test," and he's actually fine, and that's why I think you should get away with. But I think just to save a case like this, if you shouldn't get given 2 of those. If the second one happens, even if there are 2 of those plays where you just got unlucky, I feel like safety, we just say, no, the second time you're just getting shut down. Doesn't matter what happens.
And the last piece of Bengals news.
Don't you think it would be an interesting conversation, by the way? Talk to Chris
Nowinski.
I really want to talk to him.
As a good analyst like me.
Yeah.
The most important thing to do is connect every piece of story to yourself.
Of course.
Chris and I worked out at the same place, Body by Boyle, up in Woburn, Massachusetts. Shout out to Boyles.
Yeah.
His picture, it might be his wrestling picture, is up on the same wall as me. Now, that was a decade ago. There's a chance that much bigger and better players have come through Boyles in the last decade that my signed jersey is no longer up on the wall. There's a good chance I've been demoted. But at one point, we shared the same wall with our autograph up there, me and Chris.
Yeah.
We'll get him on to discuss that, I'm sure.
I would be really yeah, that's obviously 10 minutes of the show itself.
For sure.
I'd be really interested to know what his end game is. Because, like, obviously the goal, the short-term goal, the roadmap is let's make everything safer, right? And he's doing it across all sports, and, they're looking into the whole world of CTE, and they're discovering it everywhere, right? It's not just this is a highly violent contact sport thing. It's like, soccer, just heading a ball for 15 years, yeah, CTE, all that kind of stuff. So it's good.
Like, what does success look like for him
what
does the sport look like?
Particularly when it turns out it's everywhere, right? It's one thing to say there are certain barbaric, primitive sports that it turns out, of course, they're giving you brain damage in a way nobody ever fully appreciated. And you can say, all right, let's go old school on this. Let's just ban all these, right? That's too barbaric. We've evolved beyond that, and it's not worth the brain injuries. Let's ban boxing. Let's ban MMA. Like, there are people that have wanted that for years. But if you're discovering it in all the, like, are we banning every sport where you can get injured in the brain? Like, is soccer, do we now need to ban heading in soccer because it turns out that's wrecking people's brains? I'm curious to know what his end game is with all this. Like, what does he, if I told you tomorrow, wave a magic wand, the only thing it can't do is take away CTE, but it could do anything else. Like, what would you, what does your world look like now?
Interested in hearing that. Let's set it up. Reach out to him. Reach out. Last piece of Bengals news. Wide receiver Jermaine Burton has been released.
Yeah, after being effectively suspended for the last game.
He just missed a practice again.
Did he?
He's done a lot of stuff.
Was there, because Zach Taylor wouldn't say anything about it. Where'd you get that from? Did he just miss a practice?
I think he missed something 2 weeks ago. I don't know. I don't know if he's even practiced all year. Who knows? 2024 third-round pick, who I once called. I mean, if I am very careful as a fence sitter, caveat builder. I'm very careful.
You rarely,
very careful.
Rarely back yourself into a corner with your own words.
Very careful.
And yet you said about Jermaine Burton?
But if Old Takes Exposed wants to really, find me and throw a jab, I may have called him the most important draft pick of the 2024 draft. Yeah. Now, on one hand, you could say it's correct. Most important, as in because he failed, the Bengals have failed. Look at them. Can't even win games because Jermaine Burton did not step up as needed. But I thought he was a first-round talent with the very clear off-field concerns. That was where I hedged, of course, and said, just from a pure on-field perspective, very talented. The off-field was such that no one behind the scenes had one good word to say about him across two different schools, Georgia and Alabama.
Right.
And, the Bengals had 2 third-round picks, and they took a chance. And I thought the importance there was if he was good, that they didn't have to sign T. Higgins. Like, it opens up the entire roster-building strategy if he was good. That was my reasoning behind it, and clearly that was never the case.
I mean, people are talking about it as like, it's this terrible draft pick. And if you look at it just through the binary lens of like, did this player work out? Yes, no. Well, obviously he didn't work out. They've cut him already. It's a bad pick. But that was baked into the that was baked into the math when they made the pick in the first place. Like, they picked him in the third round because they thought, even though the almost very likely this guy crashes and burns based off everything we're being told about him, right? And I assume they had even more information than we did. Based off what they are being told, the chances are very high that this crashes and burns probably quite quickly. But his talent is such that it's worth taking in the third round because of the 10%.
It's
if
uneven.
The 10% hits.
It's uneven upside.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, what's the biggest long shot this weekend in a game? You know, it's like if the Giants and
but the payoff, if
Lions
they got it right,
playing,
was so huge.
Recently.
Yeah, because he's a legitimate first-round talent that they can get in the third, knowing that the reason he's available in the third is because the chances are very high that he's going to crash and burn.
And they also had 2/3 that year, so I think that was also their way of saying, "Hey, we've got this."
But that's the
pick.
yeah. I would almost that's where you get. I think it's at least debatable, defendable process to say we're going to take this guy. Like, I don't know where you take a guy like that. You know, I don't know when. What's the correct sort of mathematical, analytical place to take a guy who's 90% chance,
sixth, you just take him.
Is 90% sure to bomb his way out of the league within 2 years.
The biggest criticism could be if you were reading, because we were getting all this information.
Yes.
I don't think many teams even had him on the board. So if you have all that information, I don't care what you think of him talent-wise. It's like, all right, in the sixth, fine. If he's still there, we'll take him.
Yeah.
We're never going to take him in the third, whatever it might be, fifth or sixth, whatever you want to do. Talent-wise, that was never a question. He showed some of that in preseason action. Just off-field has been an absolute disaster for Burton. So whatever he's dealing with, first off, hope he figures it out. But for the Bengals, look, on draft night, if you told me he was going to be off the Bengals in 2 years or he's going to be like the best number 3 receiver in the NFL, I could have believed either one.
Right.
So
yeah, those are the two options. He was going to be off the team within 2 years, or he'd be an amazing hit for them already.
And for those who are new, like my story on that was I started watching his film that year. I was like, this dude is unreal. And I ranked him 4th among receivers just from an on-field perspective. And I can throw that hedge out there and say, I'm not wrong. I just said, from an on-field perspective, he was unbelievable, like a first-round talent on the field.
Yeah. Interestingly, just because I pulled up Chris Nowinski's Twitter feed, he's saying that, so the head shake thing, he has a little flow chart where he's actually quantified this.
Start the head shake, then stop to
Well, the point is,
it's
definitely a connected sign to concussions because apparently only 0.05% of all concussions reported did not involve a head shake at some point. He's like, it is an involuntary thing. Now, there's also, like I said, it doesn't work the other way where every single head shake equals concussion, but it basically means that almost never is a guy actually concussed without having shaken his head after getting up from a hit like that.
Yeah, we should get Chris on the show. The last piece of news that's just written for me on the list here from Will. What are my thoughts on the Monsters, Inc. broadcast?
Oh.
Did you lean into that at all?
I didn't
check it out?
No.
The kids enjoyed it overall. They also got distracted by playing their own football game.
It's no Real Housewives all cast.
No, certainly not. The challenge with these broadcasts, because they're animated, is they're on extreme delay. So I was watching the game on my computer in real time, and then the kids were watching Monsters, Inc., and I was kind of like checking in on that. So they were watching it on extreme, like four or five plays behind type of thing, so they get the animations going. I was excited to see the Jalen Hurts interception, fumble recovery, fumble. I was excited to see that. It broke the broadcast. All that happened was you saw a fumble and the ball just laid on the turf. That was disappointing. They also they took the obligatory shot because it was Dan Orlovsky on commentary. They took the
who was the commentary team? Dano,
play-by-play guy that I can't remember his name.
But they didn't have because normally they have that weird 3-man booth where they stuff him in when they were with Lewis. Wasn't that?
No, they didn't. Like Booger's been a part of it in the past. I don't think they had him. So it's Dan, and Dan, does a good job. He was explaining to my kids how teams need to work under center. Can't live in the gun. So my kids know, never ever, just live in the gun. You can't live in the shotgun and win in today's NFL. So Dan helped teach that. They also showed that you can't stand 1 yard outside the end zone, and they took a shot at him. Showed the animated characters standing 1 yard outside the end zone. You can't. It's out of bounds.
At the back.
The back of the
You can
end
be
zone.
1 yard out the front.
Yeah, the 1 yard out the back
it's-
of the end zone.
In fact, it's preferable to be 1 yard out
Yeah,
the front.
1 yard outside the back of the end zone. Can't do that. And
I do feel
they taught the kids not to do that, which is great. It's a PSA that everybody needs to hear.
I mean, I saw some little clips. I do feel like Sully would be an elite level game breaker on the defensive side of the ball. Like long arms, strong, big.
Yeah.
Like he's got defensive end written all over.
That's what he did the other. He was picking
Right.
passes off left and right.
Yeah.
He was on the Chargers defense,
Uh-huh.
I believe. So yeah, it was fun broadcast. Kids got distracted in and out, but they enjoyed it overall. All right, let's go. Shouty Show time. Looking forward to this one.
I've thought about it very deeply.
I liked how he started it with, I've thought about this long and hard.
I trust the backup quarterback more than I do Dak.
This is why Skip Bayless is the master of the Shouty Show segment.
I can't do it anymore. It is year 6.
It's just a never-ending arms race of idiocy between loud, obnoxious people. We are the antidote to that.
I'm always chuckling to myself every time I hear the intro. Another thing I think about with this is I like hearing I don't get to hear these takes. Like part of the reason why we do, I'm curious what the people are saying. There's a little bit of curiosity because I don't go looking for it and they get fed. Number one, let's start with something on the Packers defense.
First possession, touchdown. Second possession, field goal. Third possession, touchdown. They defense didn't do crap. Caleb Williams threw a horrible pass, and Ben Johnson had the stupidest game plan. They were running the ball down the throat of the Packers. How you can have any more confidence in the Packer defense? They got their bucks handed to them after they dominated the first half. The Bears scored on every possession and would have scored on the last possession. I didn't know who you were going to thank, Ben Johnson or Caleb Williams. You got to thank Caleb Williams because that was a horrific pass, and they didn't even need to pass the ball. They ran the ball right down the throat of the Packers, had more than enough time to score. Ben Johnson got too smart by being afraid of leaving too much time for the Packer offense. Jordan Love did it again because that defense should be embarrassed that they won the game as pathetic as they were in the second half after being so good in the first half. I have no idea what game you watched.
Steve Homer True.
Yeah.
That's his name.
There's a
Debut here on the Shouty Shows.
We were talking about this before we went on. There's like a weird vibe among certainly a minority of Green Bay media and fans. I don't know how big the minority is, but bigger than it should be, of people that are just irrationally angry about any failing that either side of the ball has. Like there's a chunk of people that seemed any time the Packers lose a game, it's like, is it time to talk about Matt LaFleur's job? Like, well, no. He's one of the best coaches in the NFL with one of the best records in the NFL since he got there. Of course it isn't time to talk about. What are you talking about?
What'd you think of the delivery? That was pretty clean.
I mean, it was angry.
It's angry.
Yeah.
It was not a lot of stutters in there.
I am getting interested in this. I watched Max Kellerman is about to reemerge on the scene. I think he's signing for The Ringer. He was on Bill Simmons' podcast, which is why I say that, because usually that preempts, Bill Simmons gives everyone a leg up in The Ringer. So he was on Bill Simmons, and he did 10 minutes or so that I watched. I wasn't going to sit through the whole thing, where they kind of talked about, what happened on First Take, where Stephen A. ran him out of the job, and then they got into it a little bit deeper, and they started talking about basically the art of the Shouty Show. Number one, Kellerman still comes across as a bit of a jackass to me. Like, he just feels like a guy that's a dick, And I'm just, whatever. He seems smart. He seems articulate. But he also seems like kind of a dick. But he said something that was interesting that I'd never really thought about before, where he was explaining effectively the difference between Skip Bayless and Stephen A. Smith. Because in my head, they're basically just the same, right? One guy did it to begin with, one guy's doing it now, but they're basically the same guy, just loud, obnoxious, shouty show jackasses. And he was like, no, the difference is, right, the idea of this debate television is centered around the hot take. And if you think about what a hot take is, it is effectively a counterintuitive conclusion, right? And he says, and the problem with that is, if you have a counterintuitive about everything 10 times a day for the entire time of your lifetime, you're just a lunatic. Like, you can't. Sometimes there is absolutely, the hot take is correct, right? But most of the time it's not. So most of the time, if you have a counterintuitive take on something, you're the guy that's the idiot in the room, right? Not than the other 99 people. And Skip Bayless's entire life is the hot take. So he has had a stupid opinion on everything for 25 straight years, right? And at some point, you just cease to have any form of credibility at that stage. It's like, yeah, I mean, I was willing to hear you out one time on Tim Tebow, but after some significant evidence in the opposite direction, you know what? I'm kind of done with it now. And he said, and the genius of, and I'm parsing his words a bit and paraphrasing them, but the genius with Stephen A. Smith is he doesn't have hot takes. What he does is sets himself up as the loud, reactive everyman to the hot take, right? So the other guy on the show has the hot take, right? And they have to dive in and find ever more ridiculous hot takes because this is the way the world works. And then Stephen A. Smith's shtick, his pantomime, his character is to be like, you are crazy, over the top nuts reaction, you're crazy, and then articulate effectively the viewpoint of the average guy in the bar. And this works on several levels because, number one, if and when the rare hot take that's actually correct, right? Like I've actually just looked at this and I've decided that groupthink is stupid and I have a different conclusion. Well, the average guy doesn't want to hear that, so you win, right? Just by being the loud, obnoxious everyman, you win because you're saying the same thing that he thinks. And then when the takes are stupid, you also win because the take is stupid, and you just shout him down and be like, it's crazy, you know? So it means his thing always works, whereas eventually the other person, Kellerman or whoever is on the other side of the aisle, like they have to spend their entire life. Number one, it's harder because you have to spend your life trying to dig up the hot take that's ever more ridiculous. And number two, you're always set up to lose the argument because Stephen A. just shouts at you from the everyman's perspective. And either way, you end up looking an idiot.
So you're saying Stephen A., two things. First, he's the everyman.
Yes.
And he has staying power.
Yes.
Whereas
this is why he's going into politics now, because he can just articulate tell me what the 75% of the world thinks.
You're telling me this tax code is good for the citizens of America?
All he needs to do is look at an opinion poll and find out where 65% of America is, and that's his opinion on everything. And whatever anybody else says that's different, he just gets to shout them down and be like, you are crazy, how dare you say that?
Explain it extremely well with a lot of confidence.
Yeah. That's his thing.
I've never thought of it like that.
And I don't know if that's him. Like if he's identified that as a difference, as unique selling point relative to Skip, that's genuinely intelligent. And I kind of hate that because I would much prefer to think that he fell into this by accident. Or that's the alternative, is he's just fallen into this by accident. Maybe there's a genius producer somewhere that's identified it as the thing. But I do think it's an important difference and distinction. Because to me, I never thought about it this way because I don't watch enough of these shows. To me, it's just a dumb take is a dumb take.
Right.
I don't really differentiate whether the dumb take is groupthink or whether it's a hot take. It's just if you're saying something stupid, you're just saying something stupid. But actually, I think that is a key difference, that Stephen A.'s stupid takes are the stupid take of, the average groupthink.
It's an interesting perspective from Max that I had not considered. Let's go to number 2 here is on the Texans defense here.
Well, I think if the playoffs started today, they would have to go to New England and they get their ass popped round 1. So the defense will take them all the way up to Foxborough. Shit.
Nah,
They'll get popped. That's why I think the defense will take them. You know what I'm saying?
I
like
New
the
England
defense.
playing good ball. I don't think New England playing good ball at all right now, but go ahead.
Man, New England is their defense flying under the radar. You know what I'm saying? They going to play physical as hell, too. And when the playoffs come, I guarantee you, Vrabel had them boys ready to go.
Yes.
I guarantee you, McDaniels have an excellent game plan against that little zone coverage that they run. I just if it stayed like this, I like them to go get popped right now. I mean, with that good defense, their offense just ain't bringing enough to the table. Like Richie said, that defense will play well, but Drake just accurate, bro. He going put completions after completions together. He going to go down. He going to get points. Josh McDaniels has seen it all.
Talib was on the 2012 Patriots team that beat the Texans in the first round in New England.
So if that just happens again, he's right.
I mean, I don't think there's anything necessarily crazy about that. Interesting discussion. I thought it was going to go the other way. Like that it would be like this because they're the 7 seed and the hot team. Like no one wants to play him. Akib went the other way.
Yeah,
with it.
Well, that's the hot take.
Yeah, that's it.
Counterintuitive conclusion. You might think the Patriots are good because they're.
Who was that said that the Patriots aren't playing well right now? I don't
know. Gerald McCoy is usually the other guy on that, is he? That didn't sound like Gerald McCoy, though.
You showed me that clip of it's all those guys and Skip. It's
the one that I saw had Gerald McCoy, Aqib Talib, Skip Bayless, and Jay Gruden on the couch together. Now, it's not always the same because there's some
colleague Jay Gruden. We can't trash Jay.
There's a woman that appears that I don't know who she is, but she appears on the couch sometimes. I've seen some other people on there as well, so I don't know what the cast is.
That clip felt like the opposite of everybody just sitting at a bar having a conversation. It just, I don't know. It felt forced. Like, I don't know, man. Like everybody was trying to create something. It was bad.
I don't enjoy that content.
How's that?
I'll put it that way.
Nicely.
I'm a little more careful now that Aqib Talib DM'd me the other day for something completely random and not to do with any of this.
Told you, completely. Will's trying to get us in trouble with Aqib. We will not do that. There's a reasonable take. Patriots they'll be favored against the Texans in Foxborough in a 2-7 matchup, and they probably win. I agree.
Yeah.
Safe.
I mean, I don't necessarily agree with them that they're going to get wrecked, but, you know.
No, I think the defense is a storyline. The whole show is based off defense here. So let's go to the Chiefs to wrap it up here.
We said before the season, J-Mac said Chiefs won't make the playoffs. I said they will, but the dynasty is over. And it looks like this is how they end. And you were watching it last night. So trust your eyes. They look a little slower. They don't look like Seattle. They don't look like the Packers. Travis Kelce, another big drop. They can't generate a consistent pass rush. The O-line got pushed around. They don't have a running game. Even Andy Reid, tie game, kind of takes a big swing, didn't have to, gave the Texans points. So this is how dynasties end. They don't fall off a cliff. They dominate for years, go to Super Bowls, win Super Bowls, and then they start winning really close games. That was Kansas City last year. And then they start losing all those close games. Oh, wait, that's Kansas City this year.
Do we have a montage of all of his Chiefs
I was
takes
just
this year?
the having to chart the full course of like here's everywhere I've been on the Chiefs this year.
Off the top of my head, we had they're 0-2, and then they were 2-3 or whatever it was at one point. There was he was declaring the dynasty dead.
Yeah,
which matched it to
by the way,
Collins' credit, matched his preseason take that it was going to die this year.
I want to see the data on that. This is how dynasties end.
Well, New England's didn't end anything like that. Like Tom Brady left
burned.
and it died.
Right.
That was it. It did fall off a cliff.
San Francisco's, I think, was a lot more like this, where they just slowly petered out. They
were started to lose to the Packers, and like they passed the torch to the Packers.
Well, they won. To
the Cowboys.
They won their last Super Bowl, and then they started losing in the playoffs, and then they just started not making the playoffs. And then that
was also a weird one, though, too, because they won 4 in the 80s. Then they hit that lull where the Cowboys dominated.
Yeah.
Then they got back over
another
the hump, the monkey off your back.
So when do you even say that ended? Like, do you say it ended and came back, or do you say it ended with the last Super Bowl win?
Yeah, you could either say it was from 81 to 94.
Right. And that's usually
it was 88. It was 81 to 90 or whatever, and then it died and came back.
That's usually when you would say the last Super Bowl win.
So 94, and then it looked like this, right? 95, 96, 97. Yeah. They were good. They were a playoff team, but they didn't get back to an NFC Championship game after that. I don't know. You could just say stuff. You don't have to. What other dynasty?
Well, that's the beauty of this is you can just say whatever you like.
So then there was some point mid-season, maybe when the Chiefs beat the Raiders or the Commanders, it's like some people were calling the dynasty dead, and maybe Colin even called himself out. They're not dead. They're the Chiefs. Like, what did he say? Because we responded to this because we started here. We were chuckling because we just said.
Well, he definitely said
2 weeks ago he declared it dead, and now they're back.
He definitely said the dynasty was done. I can't remember what he said in the middle. Like, I'm sure he had some kind of they're back, baby thing, but
they're dead again.
I don't remember that part.
But the dynasty's dead again.
I suspect there is no consistent theme as to how the dynasties end. Just top of my head, I haven't charted them all, but if you go back through
the most
NFL
recent
history,
one, Tom Brady left.
You're right. The most recent one just fell off a cliff when their quarterback left.
Now, the Cowboys, if you want to call the Cowboys a dynasty, they won 3 in 4 years. And then they did something similar where they just weren't as good anymore.
Right.
They just, Aikman got older and Emmett got older and Irvin's older and they just weren't as good.
But they were making the playoffs-ish.
They were making the playoffs.
Years.
They just weren't as good.
And then they sucked for a while. Like they went, and that was when you reached the end of Aikman, it fell off a cliff. Like it went from they were still competitive but not Super Bowl team to now they just suck.
I still don't understand the need to declare something dead first. Like if the Chiefs went 14-3 next year and it had a number 1 seed, is anyone surprised?
You're just not seeing the pattern because you're like, well, this is foolish because it's based on the last couple of weeks of evidence. But that's not where Colin's head is. Colin's head is saying, look, this is years in the making. Last year was actually the first sign of death.
We knew.
You might be thinking they made a Super Bowl, all was relatively good last year. They almost, won the whole thing. They won the AFC Championship. They almost won the whole thing.
Let's throw them into let's go.
Colin
let's take a step further, Sam. Sorry to interrupt. We have an NFL autopsy scheduled on the Atlanta Falcons, who are officially eliminated from playoff contention. Let's take it a step further. Let's put the Chiefs right in there. Let's be the first to put the Chiefs in the graveyard.
Colin has already.
They might not make the playoffs for the. Let's go further. Andy Reid's lost it.
He's already identified the time of death of the Kansas City Chiefs dynasty.
I would declare the time of death the first quarter of the Eagles game in the Super Bowl. That's what killed this season.
No, he's way before that. He's like the actually winning all of the close games was a symptom of death.
That is where the symptoms showed up.
That was the first sign. You thought this was a good thing. They were winning these close games, and that got them to a Super Bowl, and that's why all was good. In Colin's head, he was like, no, this is a warning sign. Because the next step after winning close games becomes losing close games, and then comes just losing games.
Now they're done. They're the third best team in their division for the foreseeable future. Yeah. The fact that they're going to have a third-place schedule next year and a top 20 pick doesn't matter.
Right,
because the trend
will continue.
It's over.
He's seen this coming.
Mahomes will be out of the league in 3 years at this pace. That's it. It's over. Let's just put him in the graveyard. Let's be the first to put him in the graveyard forever. We can do it. We can surpass Colin.
No, he's there.
Bulls dynasty fell off a cliff, as Hagel reminds us.
Yeah.
So dynasties die when the elite player that maybe was the most important player in the dynasty is gone. So I will actually use that as the standard. Once Patrick Mahomes is no longer in Kansas City, I might declare. You might also say they're not a dynasty. I don't even know what is a dynasty. But I'll say once Mahomes is gone, it's done.
Just because we're on in the Shouty Show world for another second, did you see the clip of Mad Dog? I don't even want to say taking a basketball shot. Throwing a basketball is the closest way I can describe this. The tweet that I've quoted simply says, "This is one of the more unathletic things I've seen." And I don't think that does it justice. Is
it more unathletic than Ravel's 40?
Yes. It's at least in that category where, honestly, this looks like, I don't even know. Words fail me. I don't even know how to describe this. This is like.
It reminds me of when everybody at PFF went to Chicago for a couple weeks, and there was like 10 of us all hanging out, and we started throwing a football in the parking lot, and I would say 6 or 7 of our colleagues, if anyone, for all the criticisms that PFF takes, all those, PFF hater, all they needed to do is watch us all play catch together.
I mean, look, there's certain
for a couple minutes.
There were some that were worse than others. This looks like, have you ever seen a wildlife program where they're like trying to rescue an endangered animal and they tranquilize dart him, right? Yeah. And there's like a 30-second period between the dart going in and them dropping to the ground where they're like stumbling around, and then a leg goes and eventually they collapse. That looks like Mad Dog with a basketball.
You'll have to send it to me.
I put it in the chat. He looks like a tranquilized animal trying to then launch a ball in the general direction of the hoop. And it's not, air ball, again, doesn't do this justice. Like, I don't think the ball lands within 5 yards of the hoop.
Let's see here. Where is he shooting? Is he shooting from mid-court?
I mean, here we go. Here's the video.
Oh my gosh! What is he?
Like, what is that? It looks. Did he like throw a hip out at the end of that as well? Just had to hobble off.
Man,
somebody
we
did
have to wrap it up because we have stuff going on. But
somebody did though have there's a video of Darren Rovell for some reason in like a full basketball outfit defending somebody, and that looks equally as crippled.
There's something about, because when I used to teach pitching, I learned a lot about how people imitate other people, right? Like you tend to imitate weird stuff, like sometimes facial expressions that don't matter, like when you're trying to like do a pitch or whatever it was. It's just fascinating to me that like this guy's watched a lot of basketball through the years.
Yeah.
Right. And so now your body and your brain cannot connect. Like
there's no. Yeah.
I've watched Patrick Ewing shoot a basketball. Right. I'm a Knicks fan. I watch Patrick Ewing. You can't even come close to replicating the thing that you've seen thousands of times, and you land at that.
This is an important life lesson that the mind and body doesn't work that way. My dad had this theory for years that he thought that if somebody watched somebody driving a stick shift for long enough, they would just be able to do it. Right. Like you understand the theory. Yeah. You know how it's supposed to work. Yeah. Like you can just go out and drive stick. And he tested this theory with me when I was 14. Never driven a car before. He's like, 14, all right, we're going to go to a big parking lot in the hospital, and you're going to drive the stick shift car because you've watched me drive them for long enough. I'm like, that is a dumb idea. That can't possibly work. And after about an hour of this, he got so frustrated that he was like, all right, we're not doing that anymore.
Theory did not work.
I have to learn how to drive the real way like everyone else. But like he learned that lesson back then, back 20 years ago, whatever. He learned that that's not the way your mind and body work. Your mind can't just simply watch something visually for long enough and then you've done it. Like it's not like the Matrix where you can just download the information into your brain and now I'm a superstar.
So really quick, I almost had the opposite experience when I was Body by Boyle, getting another shout out here today. I used to work out with all these guys training for the combine, and it was fascinating to me. Mike Boyle, the guy who ran the thing, we would do these wall slides, which were for like shoulder mobility, and Mike has bad shoulders. And so you go up against the wall and you just slide your shoulders up and down. It's like an easy exercise for me. I have good shoulder mobility. His shoulders are awful. I guess it's good for it. And when he does it, it hurts him. So he goes like this. He's like, that's how he so he demonstrates the exercise, slides his shoulders up and down, and he makes that grimace. And then I'm watching all these offensive linemen do the same thing, and they're grimacing. Like they're imitating the grimace that Mike made because that's how he showed it. So I went the other way. I was like, people imitate everything they see, even when they don't need to. It had nothing to do with the exercise. They imitated the grimace, which I thought was fascinating. And I learned a lot of that, like imitating pitching coaches who would show us something, and they're like 60 years old. They can't even bend their knees, and they're showing it, but they can't show it because they can't move. And my teammates would imitate 60-year-old pitching motion, not like the heart of what he was trying to teach. You know what I mean? It was like, so I almost went the other way where people and so I'm thinking, after all that, Mad Dog can't even come close to imitating what he's seen, which is pretty hilarious.
Yeah.
We're just ranting about stuff now. All right, we gotta do our autopsy. It's not gonna be on the Chiefs. No. We're not that bold.
It's the Atlanta Falcons.
Atlanta Falcons. What's the cause of death for the Atlanta Falcons? Officially out of the playoff picture here.
That's a good question. I mean, inconsistency has been one of them. Michael Penix Jr. not really looking like who they thought he was is part of it. But even that, I mean, I don't know if that would have fixed them, but confusing. They've just, I don't know what to make of their season. Like, they lose to the Bucs opening day. Okay, Tampa Bay's pretty good. They then murder the Minnesota Vikings, where they absolutely throttle that offense. Now, okay, that might not be as impressive as it looked at the time. They then get stomped 30-0 by the Carolina Panthers. What?
Maybe that was the biggest warning sign. Our friend Greg Rosenthal had, I'm going to paraphrase his tweet from a few weeks ago. It's basically 10 years we were talking about the Falcons needing a pass rush, right? And they tried to draft first-round pass rushers or whatever. And they go into this offseason, they spend 2 firsts on pass rushers, add a little blitz scheme, add some creativity, and before you know it, they've got this incredible pass rush this year, at least much better than it was. And Greg basically said it is rare that you see a team fix this massive need and then just everything else falls apart.
Right, nothing else is there.
And then nothing else was there. Because if you told me at the beginning of the season, hey, the Falcons pass rush, they're going to have a fierce pass rush that's going to cause a lot of teams problems. Might not be there a few weeks, but a lot of teams problems. I'm like, the offensive talent that they have, their run game, they're going to be fine. And they're sitting here with 4 wins.
Yeah.
I would say, like, the actual game is probably the Dolphins game.
That's the one I had circled.
October 26th.
Because that's the one where
34-10.
That's the one where it stopped being inconsistent and just became, you're just not good. Like they went from, because even after the Panthers game, the first one would have been a massive warning sign. Obviously, you lost 30-0. What the hell? But then they beat Washington, which they should beat. They then beat Buffalo and made Josh Allen look terrible doing it. That you're like, okay, fine. Maybe they're capable of low lows, but they're also capable of high highs. And then, okay, you lose to the 49ers again. The 49ers have lost a lot of games, or won a lot of games, rather. It was on the road. The next game, though, is you just get stumped by Miami. And Miami isn't good. That's the one where it's like, oh, we're just not very good.
And then it was all heartbreakers after that. They lose to New England by 1, where they had a game-winning drive attempt that failed.
But that was the one
overtime to Indianapolis. They blow a 2-score lead against the Panthers and lose in overtime. So then it became heartbreakers. I'll say the Dolphins game.
October the 26th.
They gave the Dolphins life. They're the reason why we're hearing about the Dolphins and being a sleeper team right now. Cause of death for the Falcons. What is the cause? I mean, I don't have a good cause.
Well,
besides the inconsistency factor.
Yeah, I mean, the inconsistency is huge, but I think a big part of it is that Michael Penix did not look the same as he looked last year. A lot of our optimism surrounding Atlanta was this offense could cook. Michael Penix was, off the top of the charts in terms of big time throw rate last year, what he could do with this offense. Zach Robinson, everything's on the table now, Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier, this thing could be cooking. And it's just not been cooking.
The other cause of death is third down.
Yeah,
that third down chart has them
terrible.
Yeah.
But Michael Penix Jr. this year, what is his PFF grade? 60?
Yeah.
His
that was
there
was a point where it was high and then it was low, and
he had more big time throws last year in 7 minutes than he's had all this year.
And then second straight year, our friend at offensive coordinator has not had a great season.
No.
Bobby last year, Zach this year.
Well, they've gone from hero to goat, scapegoat.
Yes.
Yeah. 2
straight years.
Right.
So doesn't look great. I mean, maybe it's Penix.
Maybe I think that's a big part of it. Like I said, he's got. His big time throw rate has gone from 9% to 2.7. He has more big time throws last year in whatever that was, 100 and something dropbacks than he's had this year in 300. Michael Penix, whatever about the mistakes, and he's made some mistakes this year and some inaccuracy and blah, blah. The fact that he has not been the big play threat has been the big part.
And Drake Holiday mentions he's oft injured and accuracy was shaky. And I would say even last year accuracy was shaky.
Yeah, but it was the fact that on top of that,
you offset that with some special throws.
The accuracy was iffy last year, but every 3 dropbacks he was dropping a 25-yard dime to somebody.
Yes.
It's we can deal with that. Now it's that disappeared.
That's the Jameis style. I don't mind you sailing a few passes here and there if you're creating chunk plays,
right?
More often than not. And Penix certainly was not doing that. And then the injury thing.
That's the other arguable time of death, if you wanted to really string it out, is when Michael Penix went down.
Yeah, you could say that. But they were in trouble.
Yeah, I think they were done before that. That takes you all the way to November or something, mid-November. But I think you can probably kill them with the Miami game.
Dead in Miami game. Anyway, fun show today. Thanks to Cody Alexander for joining. Go check out MatchQuarters.com. Check out all his work. Had a fun defensive discussion with him.
We had a shout out in the chat. Johnny Bones, a member, was asking what's going on with the NFL not calling holds so bad. I think that's just always the case with the NFL.
I would just encourage you to know if it's a rip move, right? You're trying to get under the outside arm of the blocker.
Mm-hmm.
And then the blocker, it looks like he's, choking you by the neck. That is not a hold.
No.
Right? So just that, when people say this guy's been hold on every play, I just assume that most of the time they're looking at a rip move.
But also there's a ton of holds that just don't get called, and that's the way of the world. Has always been, will always be.
Yeah. I would need to see the video to see what you think is a hold. But this is a tale as old as time, Sam. Every team's favorite pass rusher is held on every play. Micah Parsons, Myles Garrett, TJ Watt, they're all held on every play.
Mm-hmm.
But I would just encourage our listeners to at least understand if they try a rip move and you get sent screenshots in your group chat from your team fans, that's not a hold if the defender initiated the rip, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my PSA for everybody there. Also, thanks to everybody that's already contributed as we raise money and try to get me to dress like Elf. Raising money for Heritage House for Christmas, men's recovery program here in Cincinnati. Hoping to get to $2,000 in the next week or so. Over halfway there. The donation link is in the description or in my pinned tweet. And once we get there, I also said if we get to 2,500, I'll eat the elf spaghetti stuff. Yeah, if we get to 2,500. So we could double it right now. We're at 12 something. If we double it, I'll do the elf spaghetti stuff in my elf suit. Oh, gosh. Anyway, appreciate everybody that's already donated and joined. And it's our charity drive here for the Christmas season. Anything else?
Nope.
Bonus show coming out Friday, too. Dane Brugler talking mock draft. And then tomorrow, it's our Week 15 NFL preview, 9 a.m. tomorrow. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow.